In the heart of Charleston's historic district, beneath the scent of jasmine and the weight of generations, a hidden legacy awaits. 81-year-old Amelia Dubois, determined to preserve her ancestral home, stumbles upon a secret that will change her life and the city forever. Prepare to be swept away by Charleston Legacy, a story of rediscovered passion, dangerous truths, and a love that blossoms amidst the echoes of a tumultuous past. Can Amelia and Samuel, a historian with secrets of his own, unravel a conspiracy that reaches back to the civil rights movement and threatens to shatter the fragile peace of the present? Chapter 1. The Scent of Jasmine and Secrets. The humid Charleston air hung heavy with the scent of jasmine and the whispers of generations past. Amelia Dubois, her 81 years etched gracefully onto her face, stood on the veranda of her ancestral home, a grand but fading mansion overlooking the historic district. The house, a relic of a bygone era, was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a repository of memories, a testament to her family's legacy, a legacy she was determined to preserve. Amelia's silver hair, pulled back in a neat chignon, gleamed in the late afternoon sun. Her eyes, the color of faded denim, held a spark of defiance, a refusal to surrender to the relentless march of time or the pressures of modern life. She ran a hand over the smooth, aged wood of the veranda railing, the feel of it both familiar and comforting. It was a sensory link to her childhood, to the countless hours she'd spent playing on this very spot, dreaming of a future that had now become her past. But the house was more than just a nostalgic reminder of her youth. It was a burden of responsibility. The upkeep was costly, the repairs endless, and the pressure to sell, to succumb to the developers who were circling like vultures, was growing stronger by the day. Her nephew, Charles, a man more interested in profit than preservation, was particularly insistent, his visits becoming increasingly frequent and his arguments increasingly persuasive. Amelia, however, was made of sterner stuff. She had inherited not just the house, but also the fierce determination of her ancestors, the men and women who had built this city, who had fought for their freedoms, who had left behind a legacy she was not about to relinquish. She volunteered tirelessly at the local charity, helping those less fortunate, but her true passion, her driving force, was the preservation of this house, this tangible link to her family's history. A soft breeze rustled the palmetto fronds, carrying with it the distant sounds of the city, the clip-clop of horse-drawn carriages, the laughter of tourists, the murmur of conversations in the Gullah dialect, a reminder of the rich and complex tapestry of Charleston's history. Amelia closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, drawing strength from the familiar scents and sounds. She opened her eyes, her gaze fixed on a figure approaching the house. It was Samuel Washington, a man she'd known for years, a fellow history enthusiast, a kindred spirit. Samuel, at 78, was a distinguished-looking man, his dark skin a testament to his African-American heritage, his eyes filled with a passion for the past that mirrored her own. He was a historian, renowned expert on the civil rights movement, and a vocal advocate for preserving the historical integrity of Charleston. "Amelia," he said, his voice a warm baritone, as he reached the steps of the veranda. "You look troubled." Amelia managed a weak smile. "Just the usual, Samuel," she said, her voice a little weary. "Charles was here again. He's not giving up." Samuel's brow furrowed. "He's a fool," he said, his voice laced with disdain. "This house is a treasure, a vital part of Charleston's history. It should be preserved, not demolished to make way for another soulless condominium." Amelia sighed. "I know, Samuel," she said, "but the costs, they're overwhelming. And I'm not getting any younger." She hesitated, then added, her voice barely a whisper, "I don't want to be a burden to my family." It was a fear she rarely voiced, a fear that gnawed at her, a fear of losing her independence, of becoming a dependent, a weight on the shoulders of her loved ones. Samuel reached out, placing a comforting hand on her arm. "You are not a burden, Amelia," he said firmly. "You are a treasure, just like this house. And we're going to fight for it, together." His words, his touch, his unwavering support, sent a surge of warmth through Amelia's veins. She looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude, with a flicker of something more, a spark of connection, of a shared passion, of a friendship that had the potential to blossom into something deeper. A question lingered. The question lingered. Could their shared passion for history ignite a different kind of passion, a late-in-life romance that would defy expectations and challenge the constraints of time? It was a question Amelia hadn't dared to ask herself. Not yet, but it was there, simmering beneath the surface, a whisper of possibility in the fragrant Charleston air. The Historical Society fundraiser is next week, Samuel said, changing the subject slightly but keeping the thread of hope alive. It's a chance to raise awareness, to garner support for preservation efforts. Amelia nodded. She was actively involved in the Historical Society, dedicating countless hours to their cause. The fundraiser was a crucial event, a chance to raise much-needed funds and to rally the community around the importance of preserving Charleston's unique heritage. I've been working on securing some auction items, Amelia said. Some old family heirlooms, things that might be of interest to collectors. She hesitated, then added, There's also something else. Something I found in the house. It's unusual. Samuel's curiosity was piqued. Unusual? What is it? Amelia led him inside, the cool interior of the house a welcome respite from the humid heat. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, beeswax, and a hint of lemon oil, the aroma of generations of careful housekeeping. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, creating an ethereal, almost magical atmosphere. They walked through the grand hallway, past portraits of stern-faced ancestors, past antique furniture draped in dust sheets, past rooms filled with the ghosts of memories. Amelia led him to a small, unassuming door tucked away beneath the grand staircase, a door she'd never noticed before, a door that had been hidden behind a large, heavy armoire. I found this by accident, Amelia explained, her voice a little breathless. I was moving some furniture, preparing for the auction, and there it was. She opened the door, revealing a narrow, steep staircase leading down into darkness. A musty odor wafted up, the scent of damp earth and forgotten time. A hidden room? Samuel asked, his eyes widening in surprise. Amelia nodded. I haven't been down there yet, she said. I wanted to wait for you. It was an invitation, a gesture of trust, a sign of the deepening connection between them. Samuel felt a surge of warmth, of gratitude, of excitement. He reached for a flashlight he carried in his bag, his hand brushing against Amelia's. It was a fleeting contact, but it sent a shiver of electricity through him, a reminder of the unspoken attraction that simmered beneath the surface of their friendship. He switched on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, illuminating the narrow staircase. Shall we? He asked, his voice a little husky. Amelia nodded, her heart pounding with a mixture of trepidation and anticipation. She followed Samuel down the stairs, the darkness swallowing them whole, the only sound their footsteps echoing on the wooden steps and the distant, unknown tick of something. What was that? Chapter 2. Echoes in the ballroom. What was that? The rhythmic tick echoed in the darkness, a subtle, persistent sound that heightened the sense of mystery and anticipation as Amelia and Samuel descended into the hidden room. It was a sound that spoke of secrets, of forgotten time, of a past waiting to be rediscovered. The air grew cooler, damper, as they reached the bottom of the stairs. Samuel shone the flashlight around the room, revealing a space that was surprisingly large, larger than they had expected. It was a stark contrast to the grandeur of the house above, with rough-hewn stone walls, a low ceiling, and a dirt floor. The room was filled with an assortment of objects, covered in dust and cobwebs, their shapes indistinct in the dim light. This is incredible, Samuel whispered, his voice filled with awe. It's like stepping back in time. Amelia nodded, her heart pounding with excitement. She felt a strange sense of connection to this place, to the people who had used it, to the secrets it held. It was as if the room were whispering to her, urging her to uncover its mysteries, to bring its story to light. The ticking sound was louder now, more insistent. Samuel tracked it to a corner of the room, where a large, grandfather clock stood, its pendulum frozen mid-swing, its hands stopped at a specific time. It was an antique, a relic of a bygone era, its presence in this hidden room a puzzle in itself. The clock, Samuel said, his voice a mixture of surprise and curiosity. It's still trying to work, even after all these years. He examined the clock closely, his fingers tracing the intricate carvings on its wooden case. He opened the glass door, revealing the clock's face, its hands frozen at precisely 7:18. He gently nudged the pendulum, and with a creak and a groan, it began to swing, the ticking sound now a steady, rhythmic beat, filling the room with a sense of life, of a past reawakened. Amelia felt a shiver run down her spine. The clock, the hidden room, the unknown objects, it was all so mysterious, so intriguing. She had a feeling that this discovery would change everything, that it would unravel secrets that had been buried for generations. Samuel continued to explore the room, his flashlight beam illuminating various objects, old trunks, wooden crates, rolled-up carpets, and stacks of what appeared to be documents and books. He carefully opened one of the trunks, revealing a collection of old clothing, moth-eaten and faded, but still retaining the faint scent of lavender and mothballs. "These look like they date back to the Civil War era," Samuel said, his voice filled with excitement. This could be a significant historical find. Amelia's mind raced. The Civil War. Her family had lived in Charleston for generations, and she knew that they had played a role in the city's history, but she had never known the details. Could this hidden room be connected to her ancestors' involvement in the war? As Samuel continued to examine the contents of the room, Amelia noticed a small, wooden box tucked away on a shelf. It was unassuming, plain, but it drew her attention, compelling her to reach for it. She opened the box, her hands trembling slightly. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a collection of old photographs, letters, and a small, silver locket. The locket was intricately engraved with a palmetto tree and crescent moon, the symbols of South Carolina. Amelia picked up the locket, her heart pounding. She opened it, revealing two miniature portraits, one of a young woman with dark hair and piercing eyes, and the other of a young man in a Confederate uniform. The woman looked familiar. She felt a sudden pang of recognition, a jolt of memory. The woman in the portrait, it was her great-grandmother, Eleanor. She'd seen a larger portrait of Eleanor hanging in the ballroom upstairs. A sudden wave of emotion washed over Amelia. This hidden room, these objects, these secrets, they were connected to her family, to her heritage, to a past she was only beginning to understand. She felt a profound sense of connection to Eleanor, to the woman who had lived through a tumultuous era, who had loved, who had lost, who had left behind a legacy that was now being revealed. "Samuel," Amelia said, her voice trembling slightly. "Look at this." Samuel approached her, his eyes widening as he saw the locket, the portraits, the letters. He recognized Eleanor immediately, his knowledge of Charleston history extensive. "That's Amelia Dubois," he said, his voice filled with awe. "Your great-grandmother. She was a legendary figure, known for her beauty, her intelligence, and her defiance." Amelia's heart quickened. Defiance? What did he mean? Samuel carefully examined the letters, his brow furrowing in concentration. "These are extraordinary," he said. "They're written in code. A cipher of some kind." A code? Amelia's mind reeled. What secrets did these letters hold? What was Eleanor trying to hide? I don't understand," Amelia said, her voice confused. Samuel looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of excitement and concern. "Eleanor was involved in something, Amelia," he said. "Something dangerous. Something that could rewrite the history of Charleston." He paused, then added, his voice barely a whisper. I think Eleanor was a spy." A spy? Amelia's great-grandmother? It seemed impossible, unbelievable. But the evidence was there, in the hidden room, in the coded letters, in the ticking clock that seemed to be counting down to a revelation. The echoes in the ballroom upstairs, the whispers of generations past, suddenly seemed louder, more insistent. Amelia felt a profound sense of responsibility, of a duty to uncover the truth, to bring Eleanor's story to light, to understand the legacy she had inherited. But as Samuel continued to examine the coded letters, a new sound emerged. It was a scraping, a shuffling from the stairs. Someone was coming. Chapter 3. The Preservationist's Plea. Someone was coming. The scraping, shuffling sound from the stairs sent a jolt of adrenaline through Amelia and Samuel. They exchanged a look of alarm, their hearts pounding in unison. Who could it be? And how had they found them in this hidden room? Samuel quickly switched off the flashlight, plunging the room into darkness. The only light came from the faint glow of the moon filtering through a small, high window, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. The ticking of the clock seemed to amplify in the silence, a relentless reminder of the passage of time, of the secrets that were about to be revealed. They held their breath, listening intently, their bodies tense with anticipation. The scraping sound grew closer, followed by the creak of the stairs as someone descended into the room. A voice, muffled and distorted, echoed from the staircase. "Hello? Is anyone down there?" It was a male voice, familiar yet unsettling. Amelia recognized it immediately. It was Charles, her nephew. Amelia felt a wave of frustration, of annoyance. Charles. Of course. He was always snooping around, always looking for an angle, always trying to persuade her to sell the house. But how had he found the hidden room? "What do we do?" Amelia whispered, her voice barely audible. Samuel placed a finger to his lips, signaling her to be silent. He motioned towards a dark corner of the room, behind a stack of old trunks, a place where they could conceal themselves. They moved quickly and quietly, crouching behind the trunks, their bodies pressed together, their hearts pounding. The scraping sound stopped, and the creaking of the stairs ceased. Charles had reached the bottom. "Aunt Amelia?" Charles called out, his voice louder now, echoing through the room. "Are you here?" I saw a light. He moved into the room, his footsteps heavy on the dirt floor. Amelia could hear him breathing, could sense his presence, his prying eyes searching the darkness. "This place is a dump," Charles muttered to himself. "A complete waste of space. Imagine what this property could be worth without all this junk." He continued to explore the room, his hands brushing against the objects, his flashlight beam darting across the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Amelia held her breath, her body tense, praying that he wouldn't find them. Suddenly, Charles stopped. He had found the clock. "What the?" he muttered. He fiddled with the clock, his fingers tracing the intricate carvings, his eyes examining the frozen hands. He, too, nudged the pendulum. The rhythmic ticking filled the room, a sound that seemed to mock Charles's intrusion, his ignorance of the secrets that surrounded him. "Creepy," Charles muttered. He turned away from the clock, his flashlight beams sweeping across the room. Amelia and Samuel remained hidden, their bodies frozen, their hearts pounding. They watched as Charles continued his search, his frustration growing with each passing moment. "Where is she?" he muttered. "And what was she doing down here?" He kicked at a loose floorboard, his anger evident. "This whole place is falling apart," he said. "It's a liability, a money pit. It's time to get rid of it." He turned, his flashlight beams sweeping across the corner where Amelia and Samuel were hiding. For a moment, the light caught them, illuminating their faces, their expressions of fear and defiance. Charles gasped. "Aunt Amelia," he exclaimed. "What are you doing here? And Mr. Washington?" His voice was a mixture of surprise, annoyance, and suspicion. He had found them. The confrontation was inevitable. Amelia and Samuel slowly emerged from their hiding place, their bodies stiff, their expressions guarded. They stood facing Charles, the tension in the room thick and palpable. "Charles," Amelia said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "What are you doing here?" Charles recovered from his initial surprise, his expression shifting to a mixture of feigned concern and thinly veiled irritation. "I was worried about you, Aunt Amelia," he said, his voice dripping with insincerity. "I saw a light on in the house, and I thought something might have happened to you." Amelia raised an eyebrow, her skepticism evident. "You were worried about me?" she asked, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Or were you worried about your potential inheritance?" Charles flushed, his carefully constructed facade of concern crumbling. "Aunt Amelia, that's not fair," he said, his voice defensive. "I care about you, of course. But I also care about this house, about its value." "Its value?" Amelia repeated, her voice rising in anger. "This house is more than just a piece of property, Charles. It's our family's history, our legacy. It's priceless." Charles scoffed. "Priceless? Aunt Amelia, be realistic. This place is a wreck. It's falling apart. It's going to cost a fortune to restore it. And for what? So you can live in a museum?" He gestured around the hidden room, his expression disdainful. "And what is this place? A dungeon? A storage room for junk? It's a waste of space, Aunt Amelia. A waste of potential." Samuel stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "This room, Mr. Dubois, is not a waste of space," he said. "It's a historical artifact, a potential treasure trove of information about Charleston's past. And we intend to preserve it, just like we intend to preserve this house." Charles turned to Samuel, his eyes narrowed. "You stay out of this, Mr. Washington," he said, his voice laced with hostility. "This is a family matter." "It's a matter of historical significance, Mr. Dubois," Samuel countered, his voice unwavering. "And I, as a historian, and as a friend of your aunt, have a vested interest in ensuring that this house and its secrets are protected." The tension in the room escalated, the conflict between preservation and profit, between family loyalty and personal gain, reaching a boiling point. Amelia stepped between them, her voice filled with authority. "Enough," she said. "Charles, I understand your concerns about the cost of maintaining this house. But I am not going to sell it. I am not going to let you, or anyone else, destroy our family's legacy." She paused, her gaze sweeping from Charles to Samuel, her eyes filled with determination. "I am going to restore this house, Charles," she continued, "and I am going to uncover its secrets, with or without your help." She turned and faced the hidden room. The ticking clock was a stark reminder. It was time to act. Chapter 4. Beneath the Palmetto Moon. It was time to act. Amelia's declaration hung in the air, a resolute challenge to Charles's mercenary intentions and a testament to her unwavering commitment to preserving her family's legacy. The hidden room, with its ticking clock and its trove of secrets, had become a battleground, a symbol of the conflict between the past and the present, between preservation and profit. Charles, momentarily stunned by Amelia's forceful pronouncement, recovered his composure, his expression shifting from annoyance to a cold, calculating resolve. "Aunt Amelia," he said, his voice smooth and deceptively reasonable, "you're being emotional. You're not thinking clearly. This house is a burden, a financial drain. It's time to let it go, to move on." "I am not being emotional, Charles," Amelia countered, her voice firm. "I am being rational. This house is more than just bricks and mortar. It's a repository of history, a connection to our ancestors, a legacy we have a duty to protect." "Duty?" Charles scoffed. "Duty to whom? To a bunch of dead relatives? To a crumbling old building? To our heritage." "Charles," Samuel interjected, his voice calm but forceful. "To the history of Charleston, to the stories of the people who lived here, who struggled here, who built this city." Charles glared at Samuel, his resentment palpable. "You're interfering, Mr. Washington," he said, his voice tight with anger. "This is none of your business." "It is my business, Mr. Dubois," Samuel replied, his voice unwavering. "When the history of our city is at stake, it's everyone's business." The argument escalated, their voices rising in intensity, the tension in the room thick with unspoken animosity. Amelia, feeling a surge of exhaustion, of frustration, held up her hand, silencing them both. "Stop it," she said, her voice weary but resolute. "This is getting us nowhere. Charles, I understand your perspective, but I am not going to change my mind. I am going to restore this house, and I am going to uncover its secrets. And I would appreciate your support, but I don't need your permission." Charles looked at her, his expression a mixture of anger and something else. Resignation? Defeat? He knew that he had lost this battle, that his aunt's determination was unshakable. "Fine," he said, his voice curt. "Do what you want. But don't come crying to me when you run out of money, when you're overwhelmed by the costs, when you realize that you've made a terrible mistake." He turned and stomped towards the stairs, his footsteps echoing through the room. He paused at the bottom of the stairs, looking back at Amelia and Samuel, his eyes filled with a lingering resentment. "You'll regret this," he said, his voice a low growl. Then, he turned and disappeared up the stairs, leaving Amelia and Samuel alone in the hidden room. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the clock. Amelia felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her, the confrontation with Charles having drained her energy, her resolve. Samuel placed a comforting hand on her arm. "Are you all right, Amelia?" he asked gently. Amelia nodded, managing a weak smile. "I'm fine, Samuel," she said. "Just tired." "He's wrong, you know," Samuel said, his voice firm. "You're not making a mistake. You're doing the right thing. This house, it's worth fighting for." Amelia looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude, with a renewed sense of determination. "Thank you, Samuel," she said softly, "for believing in me, for supporting me." He smiled, his eyes reflecting the warmth of his affection, the depth of his respect for her. "Always, Amelia," he said. "Always." They stood there for a moment, their hands touching, their hearts connected, their spirits united in their shared purpose. The hidden room, with its secrets and its shadows, seemed to fade away, replaced by a sense of hope, of possibility, of a future where the past could be honored, preserved, and celebrated. They decided to leave the hidden room for the night, the emotional toll of the confrontation with Charles, coupled with the late hour, making further exploration impossible. They carefully made their way back up the stairs, emerging into the grand hallway of the house, the familiar surroundings a welcome contrast to the darkness and the mystery of the hidden room. As they walked towards the front door, Samuel paused, his gaze drawn to a large, full-length mirror hanging on the wall. The moonlight, streaming through the tall windows, illuminated the mirror, creating an ethereal, almost magical glow. "Amelia," he said, his voice hesitant. "Look." Amelia followed his gaze, her eyes widening in surprise. In the mirror, they saw not just their own reflections, but also a faint, shimmering image of a woman standing behind them. It was Eleanor, her great-grandmother, the woman from the miniature portrait in the locket. The image was fleeting, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a ghostly apparition, a reminder of the past, of the secrets that still lingered within the walls of the house. Amelia felt a shiver run down her spine, a mixture of fear and wonder. Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Samuel nodded, his expression a mixture of awe and a hint of understanding. "I did," he said softly. It was Eleanor. They stared at the mirror, their hearts pounding, their minds racing. The image had vanished, but the feeling of Eleanor's presence lingered, a silent message, a guiding spirit. They knew that they were not alone, that the past was with them, that the spirits of their ancestors were watching over them, guiding them on their journey to uncover the truth, to preserve their heritage, to honor the legacy of those who had come before them. They stepped out onto the veranda, the cool night air a welcome contrast to the stuffiness of the house. The moon, a large, silver disk in the inky sky, cast a magical glow on the landscape, illuminating the palmetto trees, the Spanish moss, the cobblestone streets of the historic district. They stood there for a moment, hand in hand, beneath the palmetto moon, their hearts filled with a mixture of trepidation and excitement. They had embarked on a journey, a quest to uncover the secrets of the past, to preserve the legacy of their ancestors, and to forge a new future, a future where history and love intertwined. The moon was beautiful, but it held secrets. So did the house. And so did they. Chapter 5. The Codebreaker's Dilemma. And so did they. The secrets of the house, the secrets of the moon, and the secrets within their own hearts intertwined, creating a complex tapestry of past and present, of duty and desire, of history and love. Amelia and Samuel, standing beneath the Charleston sky, were poised on the precipice of discovery, their journey just beginning, their bond deepening with each shared experience, each challenge overcome. The next morning, fueled by a mixture of curiosity, determination, and a growing sense of responsibility, Amelia and Samuel returned to the hidden room. The sunlight filtering through the small, high window cast a dim, ethereal glow on the space, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, the cobwebs clinging to the walls, and the assortment of objects that held the key to unlocking the secrets of Eleanor's past. Samuel, with his historian's eye and his analytical mind, focused on the coded letters found in the locket. He carefully spread them out on a makeshift table, using a magnifying glass to examine the intricate symbols, the cryptic language that Eleanor had used to conceal her messages. "This is a sophisticated cipher," Samuel said, his voice filled with admiration and a hint of frustration. "It's not a simple substitution code. It's something more complex." Amelia watched him, her heart filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. She knew that uncovering the truth about Eleanor's past would not be easy, that it would require patience, persistence, and a willingness to confront whatever secrets might be revealed. "Do you think you can break it?" she asked, her voice hesitant. Samuel looked at her, his eyes reflecting his determination, his passion for unraveling historical mysteries. "I'll do my best, Amelia," he said, "but it may take some time." He paused, then added, his voice hinting at a deeper, unspoken concern. "And we need to be careful, Amelia. These letters, they may contain sensitive information. Information that could have consequences." Amelia nodded, understanding his unspoken warning. They were delving into a past that had been deliberately concealed, a past that might involve secrets, betrayals, and perhaps even danger. As Samuel immersed himself in the coded letters, Amelia began to explore the other objects in the hidden room, carefully sorting through the trunks, the crates, and the stacks of documents, searching for any clues that might shed light on Eleanor's life, on her role as a spy, on the secrets she had kept hidden for so long. She found old photographs, faded and cracked, depicting scenes of Charleston life in the mid-19th century. She found newspaper clippings, yellowed and brittle, reporting on the events of the Civil War, on the struggles and the triumphs of the Confederacy. She found personal items, a woman's hairbrush, a delicate lace handkerchief, a small, worn book of poetry, all whispering stories of a life lived amidst turmoil and uncertainty. And then she found it, tucked away in a small, wooden box, beneath a pile of old linens. She discovered a diary. It was bound in faded leather, its pages filled with Eleanor's elegant handwriting, her thoughts, her feelings, her secrets. Amelia's heart pounded with excitement. This was it. The key to understanding Eleanor, to unlocking the mysteries of the hidden room, to uncovering the truth about her past. She carefully opened the diary, her hands trembling slightly. She began to read, her eyes scanning the faded ink, her mind absorbing Eleanor's words, her heart connecting with the woman who had lived and loved and struggled more than a century before. Eleanor's diary entries painted a vivid picture of her life, her world, her inner turmoil. She wrote of her love for Charleston, for her family, for the beauty of the South. She wrote of her growing unease with the institution of slavery, of her secret involvement in the abolitionist movement, of her daring acts of defiance against the Confederacy. She wrote of her love for a Union soldier, a man named Captain William Harrison, a man who had captured her heart, who had shared her ideals, who had risked his life to fight for freedom and equality. Their love was forbidden, dangerous, a betrayal of everything Eleanor had been taught to believe, but it was also passionate, intense, and undeniable. Amelia read with rapt attention, her heart aching for Eleanor, for the choices she had made, for the sacrifices she had endured, for the love she had risked everything for. She understood Eleanor's motivations, her courage, her unwavering commitment to her beliefs. even in the face of overwhelming opposition. As Amelia continued to read, she discovered the truth about the coded letters. They were not just love letters, they were messages. Intelligence reports that Eleanor had sent to Captain Harrison, providing him with vital information about Confederate troop movements, supply lines, and military strategies. Eleanor had been a spy, a daring and resourceful woman who had risked her life to help the Union cause, to fight for the freedom of enslaved people. The revelation sent a shiver down Amelia's spine. Her great-grandmother, a hero, a woman who had defied convention, who had challenged the status quo, who had played a crucial role in the Civil War. It was an incredible discovery, a legacy that filled Amelia with pride, with awe, and with a profound sense of responsibility. But as she reached the final pages of the diary, a new dilemma arose. The last entry was incomplete, fragmented, hinting at a secret that Eleanor had taken to her grave, a secret that could still have repercussions in the present day. It mentioned a meeting, a name, and a code. The same code. Samuel was a codebreaker. Could he be the key? Chapter 6. Shadows on the Battery. Could he be the key? The question reverberated in Amelia's mind as she closed Eleanor's diary, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Samuel, the quiet, unassuming historian, the man she had come to trust and admire, might hold the key to unlocking the final secret of her great-grandmother's past, a secret that had remained hidden for over a century. She looked across the room at Samuel, who was still engrossed in the coded letters, his brow furrowed in concentration, his fingers tracing the intricate symbols, his mind working tirelessly to decipher Eleanor's cryptic messages. She hesitated, unsure whether to interrupt him, unsure whether to share her discovery, unsure whether to reveal the potential connection between Eleanor's past and Samuel's own hidden history. She knew that Samuel carried a burden, a secret related to his military service during the Vietnam War. He had been a codebreaker, a highly skilled operative who had worked in the shadows, deciphering enemy communications, protecting national secrets. He rarely spoke of that time, his experiences shrouded in silence, his memories classified, his emotions carefully guarded. Amelia sensed that his past was a source of pain, of trauma, of a conflict between duty and conscience. She didn't want to add to his burden, to stir up painful memories, to force him to confront a past he might prefer to leave buried. But she also knew that Eleanor's diary, the incomplete final entry, the mention of a meeting, a name, and the same code Samuel was now trying to break, could not be ignored. It was a connection too significant, too compelling to dismiss. It was a thread that might lead them to the truth, to the final resolution of Eleanor's story. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Samuel," she said softly, her voice hesitant. Samuel looked up, his eyes startled, his concentration broken. "Amelia," he said, his voice a little strained. "Is something wrong?" Amelia approached him, holding Eleanor's diary in her hands. I found something," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Something important." She explained her discovery, her voice filled with emotion, her eyes searching his for understanding, for support. She told him about Eleanor's diary, about her life as a spy, about her love for Captain Harrison, and about the incomplete final entry, the secret that still lingered, unresolved. Samuel listened intently, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern, to a deep, unsettling recognition. He took the diary from Amelia, his fingers tracing the faded leather, his eyes scanning Eleanor's elegant handwriting, his mind absorbing the words that had been written more than a century ago. He reached the final entry, his breath catching in his throat. He recognized the code. It was a variation of a cipher he had studied during his training, a complex system of symbols and substitutions that had been used by military intelligence agencies for decades. He looked at Amelia, his eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and a dawning horror. This is," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "This is a military code. A highly classified code." Amelia's heart sank. A military code. It was worse than she had imagined. Eleanor's secret was not just a personal matter, it was a matter of national security, a secret that could still have repercussions in the present day. "What does it mean, Samuel?" she asked, her voice trembling. Samuel hesitated, his mind racing, his past colliding with the present, his duty to his country conflicting with his loyalty to Amelia, to Eleanor, to the pursuit of truth. He knew that he could break the code, that he could decipher Eleanor's final message, that he could unlock the secret she had taken to her grave. But he also knew that doing so might unleash forces he couldn't control, that it might endanger himself, Amelia, and perhaps even the nation. It was a codebreaker's dilemma, a choice between silence and revelation, between protecting the past and confronting the present. I need some time, Amelia," he said finally, his voice strained. "I need to think." He closed the diary, his hand lingering on the cover, as if trying to draw strength from Eleanor's spirit, from her courage, from her unwavering commitment to her beliefs. Amelia nodded, understanding his hesitation, his inner turmoil. She knew that he was facing a difficult decision, a choice that could have far-reaching consequences. "Take all the time you need, Samuel," she said softly. "I trust you." He looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude, with a renewed sense of determination. "Thank you, Amelia," he said, for everything." They left the hidden room, the ticking clock a constant reminder of the secrets they had uncovered, of the challenges that lay ahead. They emerged into the late afternoon sunlight, the warmth of the day a stark contrast to the cool, dark mystery of the hidden room. They decided to take a walk, to clear their heads, to discuss their options, to try to make sense of the tangled web of past and present that they had stumbled upon. They walked towards the Battery, the historic seawall that protected Charleston from the ravages of the ocean, a place where the past and the present converged, where the echoes of history mingled with the sounds of the modern city. As they walked, the shadows lengthened, the sky turning shades of orange, pink, and purple, a breathtaking display of natural beauty that offered a momentary respite from the weight of their discovery. They sat on a bench overlooking the harbor, watching the sailboats glide across the water, the seagulls soaring overhead, the distant silhouette of Fort Sumter, a reminder of the Civil War, of the conflict that had shaped Eleanor's life, of the secrets that still lingered in the shadows. Samuel broke the silence, his voice low and serious. "Amelia," he said, "I know what I have to do." He did. But would he do it? Chapter 7. A Legacy Challenged. He did. But would he do it? The unspoken question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of Samuel's past, with the potential consequences of his decision, with the delicate balance between duty, loyalty, and the pursuit of truth. He knew he could break the code, decipher Eleanor's final message, and unlock the secrets of the past. But should he? "Amelia," Samuel said again, his voice firm now, resolute. "I'm going to break the code. I'm going to decipher Eleanor's message." Amelia looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had trusted him to make the right decision, and she knew that he would not disappoint her. But she also understood the risks, the potential dangers that might lie ahead. "Are you sure, Samuel?" she asked softly. "You said it was a highly classified code. What if it's dangerous?" Samuel smiled, a faint, reassuring smile that reached his eyes. "I've faced danger before, Amelia," he said, "and I'm not afraid. I have a duty, a responsibility, to uncover the truth, to honor Eleanor's legacy, and to protect the present." He paused, his gaze shifting to the distant horizon, his mind seemingly lost in thought. "My past, it's complicated, Amelia," he continued, his voice barely a whisper. "I've kept secrets for a long time, secrets that have weighed heavily on my heart. But this is a chance to do something right, to use my skills, my knowledge, for a good purpose." Amelia reached out, taking his hand, her touch gentle and supportive. "I understand, Samuel," she said. "And I'm with you every step of the way." He squeezed her hand, his eyes reflecting his gratitude, his love, his unwavering commitment to her and to the task ahead. They returned to the cottage, to the hidden room, to the coded letters and Eleanor's diary. Samuel set up a makeshift workspace, spreading out the documents, his code-breaking tools, and a notepad, his mind already working, analyzing the symbols, searching for patterns, piecing together the puzzle of Eleanor's final message. Amelia watched him, her heart filled with admiration for his intelligence, his dedication, his unwavering focus. She knew that he was in his element, that he was using his unique skills, his knowledge, to unravel a mystery that had spanned generations. Hours passed, the only sounds in the room the rhythmic ticking of the clock, the scratching of Samuel's pen on paper, and the occasional sigh of frustration or murmur of discovery. The sun set, casting long shadows across the room, the darkness deepening, the secrets of the past slowly yielding to Samuel's relentless pursuit of the truth. Finally, as the moon rose high in the sky, casting a silvery glow on the landscape, Samuel let out a gasp, his eyes widening in realization. "I've got it," he exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement. "I've broken the code." Amelia rushed to his side, her heart pounding with anticipation. "What does it say, Samuel?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "What's the secret?" Samuel looked at her, his expression a mixture of triumph and trepidation. It's complicated, Amelia," he said. "It's not what I expected." He took a deep breath, then began to translate Eleanor's final message, his voice steady and clear, revealing the truth that had been hidden for over a century. The message spoke of a meeting, a clandestine rendezvous between Eleanor and a Confederate officer, a man named General Beauregard. It spoke of a plan, a conspiracy to sabotage the Union war effort, to betray the Confederacy from within. But it also spoke of something else, something far more shocking, far more dangerous. It spoke of a hidden cache of gold, Confederate gold, intended to fund the war effort, but secretly diverted by General Beauregard for his own personal gain. And the location of the gold? It was hidden somewhere in Charleston. Somewhere within the historic district. Somewhere close. Amelia's mind reeled. Confederate gold? Hidden in Charleston? It seemed like something out of a novel, a legend, a myth. But the evidence was there, in Eleanor's own handwriting, deciphered by Samuel, a testament to the truth of her message. This is incredible, Samuel," she said, her voice filled with awe. It's like a treasure hunt." Samuel nodded, his expression serious. "It is, Amelia," he said, "but it's also dangerous. This gold, if it exists, it could be worth millions. And there are people, powerful people, who might be willing to do anything to get their hands on it." He paused, his gaze meeting hers, his eyes filled with concern. "We need to be careful, Amelia," he said. "We need to protect ourselves. And we need to decide what to do with this information." Amelia understood his warning. They had stumbled upon a secret that could have far-reaching consequences, a secret that could put them in danger, a secret that could challenge the very foundations of Charleston's history. Before they could discuss their options, before they could decide on a course of action, a new challenge emerged, a threat from an unexpected source. A loud knock echoed through the house, startling them both. Amelia looked at Samuel, her eyes filled with alarm. "Who could that be?" she whispered. Samuel shook his head. "I don't know," he said. "But I don't like it." He cautiously approached the door, his hand reaching for the old, rusty pistol he kept hidden in a drawer, a relic from his military days, a weapon he hoped he would never have to use again. He peered through the peephole, his eyes widening in surprise and dismay. It was Charles, Amelia's nephew, standing on the porch, his expression a mixture of anger and desperation. But he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a man Amelia had never seen before, a tall, imposing figure with a stern face and eyes that seemed to pierce through the door. The man was dressed in a dark suit, and he carried a briefcase, clutched tightly in his hand. Something was very wrong. Charles had brought trouble, and it had a legal look. Chapter 8. The Hidden Room's Revelation. And it had a legal look. The presence of the unknown man, with his dark suit, stern face, and tightly clutched briefcase, added a layer of ominous formality to Charles's already unwelcome visit. It was clear that this was not just another attempt by her nephew to pressure her into selling the house. This was something more, something potentially far more serious. Samuel cautiously opened the door, his hand still hovering near the hidden pistol, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. Charles, Samuel said, his voice calm but firm. What is the meaning of this? Charles avoided Samuel's gaze, his eyes shifting nervously to the man beside him. Aunt Amelia, he said, his voice strained. This is Mr. Harrison. He's an attorney. An attorney? Amelia's heart sank. This was worse than she had imagined. Charles had brought a lawyer, a clear indication that he was escalating his efforts to gain control of the house, to force her to sell. An attorney? Amelia said, her voice trembling slightly. What for? Mr. Harrison stepped forward, his expression cold and professional. Mrs. Dubois, he said, his voice devoid of warmth, I represent certain interests that have a claim on this property. A claim? Amelia's mind reeled. What claim could anyone possibly have on her family's ancestral home? She had lived in this house her entire life, and as far as she knew, the title was clear, the ownership undisputed. I don't understand, Amelia said, her voice confused. What claim are you talking about? Mr. Harrison opened his briefcase, extracting a thick document, its pages filled with legal jargon, its appearance intimidating. This is a legal challenge to your ownership of this property, Mrs. Dubois, he said, his voice flat and unemotional. Based on newly discovered evidence. Newly discovered evidence? Amelia's mind raced. What evidence could possibly exist that would challenge her ownership of the house? Could it be related to the hidden room, to Eleanor's diary, to the coded message about the Confederate gold? I don't believe you, Amelia said, her voice shaking. This house has been in my family for generations. There's no way the evidence is irrefutable, Mrs. Dubois, Mr. Harrison interrupted, his voice sharp. We have documents, legal records, that prove that this property rightfully belongs to someone else. He paused, his gaze shifting to Charles, a subtle smirk playing on his lips. To Mr. Dubois, to be precise. Charles? Amelia's eyes widened in disbelief. Charles was claiming ownership of the house? Based on what? This was outrageous, preposterous. Charles, what is the meaning of this? Amelia demanded, her voice rising in anger. This is ridiculous. You have no claim on this house. Charles avoided her gaze, his face flushed, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. It's true, Aunt Amelia, he said, his voice hesitant. I found some old documents in the attic. They prove that the house was never legally transferred to your branch of the family. Amelia felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. This was a nightmare, a betrayal by her own nephew, a desperate attempt to steal her home, her heritage, her legacy. Samuel stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Mr. Harrison, he said, I suggest you reconsider your position. This is a frivolous claim, based on dubious evidence. We will fight this, in court if necessary. Mr. Harrison smiled, a cold, condescending smile. We're prepared for that, Mr. Washington, he said. And we're confident that we will prevail. He turned back to Amelia, his expression hardening. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises, Mrs. Dubois, he said. Or we will be forced to take further action. He handed her the document, his touch cold and impersonal. Then, he turned and walked away, Charles following close behind, his head hung low, his shame evident. Amelia stood there, stunned, the legal document clutched in her trembling hands, her mind reeling from the shock of Charles's betrayal, from the threat of losing her home, from the sudden and unexpected challenge to her family's legacy. The hidden room, with its secrets and its revelations, seemed to mock her, a reminder of the past that had come back to haunt her, to threaten her present, to jeopardize her future. Samuel put a comforting arm around her, his presence a source of strength and support. Don't worry, Amelia, he said softly. We're not going to let them win. We're going to fight this. Amelia looked at him, her eyes filled with tears, with a mixture of despair and a flicker of hope. She knew that Samuel was right, that they had to fight, that they couldn't give up without a struggle. But she also knew that they were facing a formidable challenge, a legal battle that could be costly, time-consuming, and emotionally draining. And she was afraid of losing her home, afraid of losing the connection to her past, afraid of losing the legacy she had vowed to protect. "What do we do, Samuel?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Samuel tightened his grip on her arm, his eyes filled with determination. "We start by examining this document," he said, his voice firm. "We need to understand the basis of their claim, the evidence they're using against us." They went inside, to the library, a room filled with books, with history, with the accumulated wisdom of generations. They spread the legal document out on a large table, its pages illuminated by the soft glow of a lamp. As they began to read, their eyes scanning the dense legal jargon, their minds searching for clues, for weaknesses, for any sign of hope, they heard a faint sound, a subtle click coming from the direction of the hallway. It was the sound of the front door opening. Someone else had entered the house, uninvited. And this time, they weren't being quiet. Chapter 9. Family Ties and Twisted Vines. And this time, they weren't being quiet. The sound of the front door opening, followed by the distinct, unhurried footsteps echoing through the hallway, signaled an intrusion that was both brazen and deliberate. This was not Charles sneaking around, nor was it Mr. Harrison serving legal papers. This was someone who felt they had a right to be there, someone who was making their presence known. Amelia and Samuel exchanged a look of alarm, their hearts pounding. Who could it be? And what did they want? Samuel, ever protective, motioned for Amelia to stay put. He cautiously moved towards the library door, his hand reaching inside his jacket, his fingers brushing against the reassuring cold steel of the pistol he still carried. He peered into the hallway, his eyes narrowed, his senses on high alert. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, tall and slender, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, her face etched with a mixture of determination and something else. Something that looked like disdain. Amelia gasped. "Aunt Beatrice?" she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. Beatrice Dubois, Amelia's estranged aunt, a woman she hadn't seen in years, a woman who had always been a source of conflict and tension within the family. Beatrice was Charles's mother and Amelia's father's younger sister. She had always resented Amelia's father, believing that he had cheated her out of her rightful inheritance, that the house, the family fortune, should have been hers. Beatrice stopped in the hallway, her gaze sweeping across the room, her eyes cold and calculating. She looked at Amelia, her expression a mixture of disdain and triumph. Well, Beatrice said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Look what we have here." The prodigal niece, still clinging to her crumbling old mansion. Amelia felt a surge of anger, of resentment. Beatrice had always been a bitter, manipulative woman, driven by greed and a deep-seated sense of entitlement. Her presence here, at this moment, could only mean one thing. She was involved in Charles's scheme to take the house. "Beatrice," Amelia said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "What are you doing here?" Beatrice smiled, a cold, unpleasant smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm here to claim what's rightfully mine, Amelia," she said, her voice smooth and confident. "Or rather, what's rightfully ours. Charles's and mine." "This house is not yours, Beatrice," Amelia countered, her voice rising in anger. "It belongs to my family, to my ancestors. You have no claim on it." "Oh, but I do, my dear," Beatrice said, her voice dripping with malice. "You see, I have proof. Proof that your father, he wasn't the rightful heir. Proof that he stole this house from me." Amelia's mind reeled. This was insane, preposterous. Her father had been an honorable man, a respected member of the community. He would never have stolen anything, let alone his own sister's inheritance. "You're lying, Beatrice," Amelia said, her voice shaking. "You've always been jealous of my father, of our family. You're making this up." Beatrice laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the hallway. "Am I, Amelia?" she asked. "Or are you simply afraid of the truth?" She stepped closer, her eyes fixed on Amelia, her expression challenging. "I have documents, Amelia," she said. "Old letters, legal records that prove my claim. Your father, he forged a will. He manipulated the system. He cheated me out of my birthright." Amelia felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. This was too much, too fast. Charles's betrayal, Mr. Harrison's legal challenge, and now Beatrice's accusations, her claim on the house, her attack on her father's integrity. Samuel stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Mrs. Dubois," he said, "I suggest you leave. This is a private matter, and you are trespassing." Beatrice turned to Samuel, her eyes narrowing. "And who are you?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Some hired help? A boyfriend? Trying to get your hands on the Dubois fortune?" Amelia bristled at Beatrice's insulting tone, at her implication that Samuel was anything other than a dear friend and a trusted ally. "Mr. Washington is a historian, Beatrice," Amelia said, her voice sharp. "And he's a friend. He's here to help me preserve this house, to protect our family's legacy." Beatrice scoffed. "Preserve this wreck?" she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "This house is a money pit, a relic of a bygone era. It's time to let it go, Amelia. It's time to move on." "I will never let it go, Beatrice," Amelia said, her voice filled with determination. "This house is my home, my heritage, my connection to the past, and I will fight you and Charles and anyone else who tries to take it away from me." Beatrice smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "We'll see about that, Amelia," she said. "We'll see." She turned and walked towards the front door, her footsteps echoing through the hallway. She paused at the door, looking back at Amelia and Samuel, her eyes filled with a lingering malice. "This isn't over, Amelia," she said. "Not by a long shot." Then, she opened the door and disappeared into the night, leaving Amelia and Samuel standing in the hallway, the silence broken only by the sound of their own breathing, by the weight of Beatrice's threat, by the escalating conflict that threatened to tear their lives apart. The family ties that should have bound them together had become twisted vines, strangling the truth, threatening to destroy the legacy that Amelia was so desperately trying to protect. The twisted vines had wrapped around the house. They were choking the life out of it, and Amelia knew she had to act fast. But how? Chapter 10. The Weight of Unspoken Words. But how? The question hung heavy in the air, a daunting challenge that loomed over Amelia and Samuel in the aftermath of Beatrice's venomous visit. They were facing a multi-pronged attack, a legal challenge orchestrated by a ruthless lawyer, a betrayal by a greedy nephew, and the venomous machinations of a bitter, estranged aunt. The weight of these combined threats was almost overwhelming, threatening to crush Amelia's spirit and extinguish her hope of preserving her family's legacy. They retreated to the library, the room that had become their sanctuary, their war room, their place of refuge amidst the growing storm. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words, of shared anxieties, filling the space between them. Amelia felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her, the emotional toll of the day's events, the constant pressure, the relentless attacks on her home, her heritage, taking their toll. She leaned her head on Samuel's shoulder, seeking comfort in his presence, in his strength, in his unwavering support. Samuel put his arm around her, holding her close, his touch gentle and reassuring. "We'll figure this out, Amelia," he said softly, his voice filled with determination. "We're not alone. We have the truth on our side, and we have each other." Amelia nodded, her heart warmed by his words, by his unwavering belief in her, in their cause. But she also knew that the truth, in this case, was a complex and elusive thing, buried beneath layers of family secrets, legal manipulations, and long-held resentments. "Beatrice, she's lying, Samuel," Amelia said, her voice trembling slightly. "My father, he would never have forged a will. He would never have cheated his own sister." "I believe you, Amelia," Samuel said, his voice firm. "But we need proof. We need evidence to counter her claims, to expose her lies." He paused, his gaze shifting to the legal document that Mr. Harrison had left behind, the document that challenged Amelia's ownership of the house. "We need to examine this document carefully," he said. "We need to understand the basis of their claim, the evidence they're using against us. And we need to find a lawyer, a good lawyer who can help us fight this." Amelia sighed. "I don't know any lawyers, Samuel," she said. "And I certainly can't afford one." Not with the cost of maintaining this house. With the repairs that need to be done, Samuel smiled, a reassuring smile that reached his eyes. Don't worry, Amelia, he said. I have a friend, a former colleague from my military days. He's a lawyer, a very good one. And he owes me a favor. Amelia's heart lifted with a flicker of hope. A lawyer. A friend of Samuel's. Someone they could trust. It was a lifeline, a ray of light in the gathering darkness. Thank you, Samuel, she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. I don't know what I would do without you. He squeezed her hand gently, his eyes reflecting the depth of his affection, the strength of his commitment to her. You're not going to have to find out, Amelia, he said. We're in this together. They spent the next few hours poring over the legal document, their minds working in tandem, their combined knowledge and experience complementing each other. Samuel, with his analytical mind and his attention to detail, focused on the legal jargon, the specific clauses, the potential loopholes. Amelia, with her intimate knowledge of her family history, her intuition, and her connection to the house, searched for inconsistencies, for contradictions, for any sign that the document was fraudulent, that Beatrice's claim was based on lies. As they worked, they talked, sharing their thoughts, their fears, their hopes. They talked about Amelia's father, about his character, about his love for his family, for his home. They talked about Beatrice, about her bitterness, her greed, her long-held resentment. And they talked about Eleanor, about the secrets she had kept, about the coded message Samuel had deciphered, about the hidden Confederate gold. They realized that Eleanor's story, the past they had uncovered in the hidden room, might be connected to the present, to the legal challenge they were now facing. Could Beatrice's claim on the house be somehow linked to the hidden gold? Was she trying to get her hands on the treasure, using the legal system as a weapon? The possibility, however remote, added another layer of complexity to the already tangled web of family secrets and legal manipulations. It also added a sense of urgency, a need to act quickly, to protect the house, to uncover the truth, before it was too late. As the night wore on and the weight of unspoken words grew heavier, Amelia and Samuel found themselves drawn closer, their bond strengthening with each shared challenge, each shared moment of vulnerability and hope. They were not just friends, not just allies in a fight to preserve a historical legacy. They were something more, something deeper, something that transcended the circumstances that had brought them together. They were two souls, connected by a shared passion for history, by a shared commitment to justice, and by a growing affection that was blossoming amidst the adversity they faced. The unspoken words, the unspoken feelings, hung in the air, a silent promise of a future they might share, if they could only overcome the obstacles that stood in their way. Finally, as the first rays of dawn began to creep through the windows, Samuel closed the legal document, his expression thoughtful. I think I've found something, Amelia, he said, his voice filled with a mixture of excitement and caution. A discrepancy. A potential flaw in their claim. Amelia's heart quickened with hope. What is it, Samuel? She asked, her voice eager. It's complicated, he said. But it has to do with the original land grant, the deed to this property. There's a clause, a very obscure clause, that might just give us a fighting chance. He paused, his gaze meeting hers, his eyes filled with a renewed determination. We need to go to the courthouse, Amelia, he said. We need to examine the original records. We need to find the truth. Amelia nodded, her heart filled with a surge of hope. They had a lead, a direction, a glimmer of light in the darkness. They had a chance, but they also had to hurry. The clock was ticking. Chapter 11. Whispers of Treason. The clock was ticking. Not just the grandfather clock in the hidden room, but the metaphorical clock of their legal battle, the countdown to the deadline imposed by Mr. Harrison, the 24-hour ultimatum that hung over Amelia's head like a sword of Damocles. They had to act quickly, decisively, if they were to save her home, her heritage, her legacy. Early the next morning, fueled by adrenaline, determination, and a shared sense of purpose, Amelia and Samuel headed to the Charleston County Courthouse, a grand, imposing building that housed the city's legal records, the documents that held the key to their past, their present, and their future. The courthouse was a hive of activity, lawyers rushing to and fro, clerks shuffling papers, and citizens seeking legal assistance or information. The air was thick with the scent of old paper, ink, and the hushed whispers of legal proceedings. Amelia and Samuel made their way to the records room, a vast, cavernous space filled with rows upon rows of shelves, stacked high with leather-bound volumes, dusty files, and ancient documents. It was a daunting sight, a labyrinth of legal history, a testament to the countless disputes, transactions, and legal battles that had shaped the city of Charleston over the centuries. They approached the clerk, a middle-aged woman with a weary expression and a no-nonsense demeanor. "We need to see the original land grant for the Dubois property on East Bay Street," Samuel said, his voice firm and confident. "And any subsequent deeds, wills, or legal documents related to that property." The clerk looked at them. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "That's a lot of records," she said, her voice flat. "It'll take some time to locate them." "We understand," Samuel said. "But it's urgent. We're facing a legal challenge to the ownership of the property." The clerk sighed, her expression softening slightly. She knew the stakes, the potential loss, the emotional toll of such legal battles. She had seen it countless times before. "All right," she said. "Give me the property address and the names of the previous owners. I'll see what I can find." Amelia and Samuel provided the information, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The clerk disappeared into the maze of shelves, her footsteps echoing through the room. They waited, their bodies tense, their minds racing. They knew that the records held the key to their future, the evidence they needed to counter Beatrice's claim, to expose her lies, to protect Amelia's home. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The silence of the records room was broken only by the rustling of papers, the occasional cough, and the distant murmur of conversations. Amelia felt a growing sense of unease, of vulnerability. She was surrounded by history, by the stories of countless lives, but she was also acutely aware of the power of the legal system, of the way it could be manipulated, twisted, used to dispossess people of their homes, their heritage, their legacies. Finally, the clerk returned, her arms laden with several large, heavy volumes. She placed them on a table, her expression neutral. "Here you go," she said. "The original land grant and a few subsequent deeds. I couldn't find everything, but this should get you started." Amelia and Samuel thanked her, their voices filled with gratitude. They sat down at the table, their hands trembling slightly as they opened the first volume. The original land grant was a beautiful document, handwritten on parchment, its ink faded but still legible, its language formal and archaic. It dated back to the early 18th century, granting ownership of the land to one of Amelia's ancestors, a French Huguenot who had fled religious persecution in Europe and sought refuge in the New World. They carefully examined the document, their eyes scanning the text, searching for the clause that Samuel had mentioned, the obscure legal technicality that might give them a fighting chance. And then they found it, tucked away in a paragraph filled with legal jargon, a seemingly insignificant clause that stated that the property could only be transferred to a direct descendant of the original grantee, and that any attempt to transfer it to someone outside the direct line of descent would render the transfer null and void. Amelia's heart leaped with hope. This was it. The loophole. The flaw in Beatrice's claim. "Samuel," she whispered, her voice filled with excitement. "Look at this." Samuel leaned closer, his eyes widening as he read the clause. "This is incredible, Amelia," he said. "This could be our salvation." He explained that, according to the family tree he had researched, Beatrice was not a direct descendant of the original grantee. Her lineage branched off through a marriage, not direct blood. If they could prove that Amelia's father had not forged the will, as Beatrice claimed, but that the house had been passed down correctly through previous, untampered wills according to the original clause, then Beatrice's entire case would crumble. But there was a catch. The clause also stated that any challenge to the ownership of the property had to be made within a certain time frame, a statute of limitations that had long since expired. "Unless," Samuel said, his voice thoughtful, unless there was evidence of fraud, of deliberate deception, of a conspiracy to conceal the truth. Amelia's mind raced. The hidden room, Eleanor's diary, the coded message, the Confederate gold, could it all be connected? Could Eleanor's secret, the secret she had taken to her grave, be the key to proving fraud, to overcoming the statute of limitations, to defeating Beatrice's claim? As they continued to examine the records, they discovered something else, something that sent a chill down Amelia's spine. They found a document, a letter written by Amelia's father, shortly before his death. It was addressed to Amelia, but it had never been delivered. The letter spoke of a family secret, a secret that had been passed down through generations, a secret that Amelia's father had been reluctant to reveal, fearing the consequences, fearing the pain it might cause. He wrote of Eleanor, of her involvement in the Civil War, of her role as a spy, of her love for a Union soldier. And he wrote of the Confederate gold, of its hidden location, of the danger it represented. He wrote of a conspiracy, a plot by Confederate sympathizers, including members of their own family, to steal the gold, to use it for their own nefarious purposes. He wrote of treason, of betrayal, of a web of deceit that had ensnared their family for generations. And he wrote of Beatrice. He wrote that she knew the secret, that she had always known, and that she was driven by a desire for revenge, for power, for the gold itself. The whispers of treason echoed through the records room, the past colliding with the present, the secrets of Eleanor's life revealing a dark and dangerous truth that threatened to destroy everything Amelia held dear. They had to find out more. Chapter 12. A glimmer of hope on Rainbow Row. They had to find out more. The letter from Amelia's father, discovered amidst the dusty legal records, had revealed a shocking truth. Beatrice's claim on the house was not just about greed or family resentment. It was intertwined with a much larger, more dangerous conspiracy, a legacy of treason and betrayal that stretched back to the Civil War. The Confederate gold, mentioned in Eleanor's coded message and now confirmed by Amelia's father, was the key, the driving force behind Beatrice's relentless pursuit of the property. Amelia and Samuel left the courthouse, their minds reeling from the revelations, their hearts heavy with the weight of the past, with the urgency of their task. They knew they had to act quickly, decisively, to protect Amelia's home, to expose Beatrice's lies, and to uncover the truth about the hidden gold before it fell into the wrong hands. They decided to return to the hidden room, to re-examine Eleanor's diary and the coded letters, seeking any further clues, any additional information that might help them understand the conspiracy, identify the players, and locate the gold. As they walked back towards East Bay Street, the vibrant colors of Rainbow Row, the iconic row of historic houses painted in pastel hues, offered a momentary distraction, a reminder of the beauty and resilience of Charleston, a city that had survived war, natural disasters, and countless challenges throughout its history. Amelia paused, her gaze drawn to the cheerful facades, the window boxes overflowing with flowers, the wrought iron balconies that adorned the houses. She felt a surge of determination, of a renewed commitment to preserving this heritage, to protecting the beauty and the history of her city. "We're not just fighting for my house, Samuel," she said, her voice firm. "We're fighting for Charleston. We're fighting for the truth." Samuel nodded, his eyes reflecting her determination, his heart filled with admiration for her strength, her resilience, her unwavering spirit. "I know, Amelia," he said, "and we're going to win." They continued their walk, their steps purposeful, their minds focused on the task ahead. They reached the cottage, the familiar scent of jasmine and old wood welcoming them home. They went straight to the hidden room, the ticking clock a constant reminder of the urgency of their mission. They spread out Eleanor's diary and the coded letters on the makeshift table, their eyes scanning the pages, their minds searching for any overlooked details, any hidden clues that might shed light on the location of the gold, on the identities of the conspirators, on the full extent of Beatrice's involvement. Samuel, with his code-breaking expertise, focused on the final, fragmented entry in Eleanor's diary, the one that mentioned the meeting, the name, and the code. He realized that the name was not a person's name, but a place name, Sullivan's. Sullivan's Island, a barrier island at the entrance to Charleston Harbor, a place of strategic importance during the Civil War, a place where Confederate fortifications had been built, a place where secrets might be buried. Could the gold be hidden on Sullivan's Island? It seemed plausible, likely even. But where on the island? It was a large area, with beaches, dunes, marshes, and historical landmarks. Finding the gold would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. As Samuel continued to study the coded letters, Amelia focused on Eleanor's diary, rereading the entries, searching for any subtle hints, any veiled references that might provide a more specific location. And then, she found it, in a seemingly innocuous passage, where Eleanor described a walk on the beach with Captain Harrison. She mentioned a twisted oak, a lone sentinel, and a view of the harbor where the water meets the sky. Amelia's heart quickened. A twisted oak, a lone sentinel, a view of the harbor. It was a description, a set of landmarks, a clue to the gold's location. She shared her discovery with Samuel, her voice filled with excitement. "Samuel, I think I know where it is," she said. "Or at least where to start looking." Samuel looked at her, his eyes widening in surprise. He reread the passage in Eleanor's diary, his mind racing, piecing together the clues. "You're right, Amelia," he said. "It's a description. A set of landmarks. We need to go to Sullivan's Island. We need to find that twisted oak." They decided to go immediately, wasting no time. They gathered their supplies, a flashlight, a shovel, a map of Sullivan's Island, and Samuel's trusty pistol, a precaution against any unforeseen dangers. They drove to Sullivan's Island, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the landscape, the air filled with the scent of salt and sea breezes. They parked near the beach, their hearts pounding with anticipation, with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. They began their search, walking along the beach, their eyes scanning the dunes, the vegetation, searching for the twisted oak, the lone sentinel that Eleanor had described. They walked for miles, their legs growing tired, their hope beginning to dwindle. And then they saw it. In the distance, silhouetted against the setting sun, stood a large, ancient oak tree, its branches twisted and gnarled, its trunk thick and sturdy, its presence commanding. It was a lone sentinel, standing guard over the beach, its roots firmly planted in the sand. Amelia and Samuel exchanged a look, their eyes filled with a shared sense of triumph, of discovery. They had found the first landmark. They were on the right track. As they approached the tree, they noticed something else. From its vantage point, they had a clear view of the harbor, of the city of Charleston in the distance, of the place where the water met the sky, just as Eleanor had described. This was it. The place where Eleanor and Captain Harrison had walked, where they had shared their love, where they had hidden the gold. But where, exactly, was the gold buried? They searched the area around the tree, their eyes scanning the ground, looking for any sign of disturbance, any clue that might reveal the treasure's location. The sun was setting fast. Time was running out. And they were so close. Chapter 13. The Auctioneer's Gavel. Time was running out. The sun was setting fast, casting long shadows across the beach, painting the sky in hues of orange, pink, and purple. The beauty of the scene was a stark contrast to the urgency of their mission, to the potential danger that lurked beneath the surface of this idyllic island. They were so close, they could feel it, but the exact location of the Confederate gold remained elusive, hidden somewhere in the vicinity of the twisted oak. Amelia and Samuel continued their search, their eyes scanning the ground, their hands probing the sand, their minds racing, trying to think like Eleanor, to imagine where she and Captain Harrison would have chosen to bury the treasure. They considered the practicalities. It had to be a place that was easily accessible, yet hidden from casual view. It had to be a place that would be relatively undisturbed, protected from the elements, and easily identifiable to those who knew the secret. Samuel, with his military background, suggested looking for any signs of disturbed earth, any subtle changes in the vegetation, any indication that the ground had been dug up and then carefully replaced. Amelia, with her intuitive connection to Eleanor, focused on the landmarks, on the description in the diary. She walked around the twisted oak, her eyes tracing its gnarled branches, her hand touching its rough bark, trying to feel a connection to the past, to the woman who had stood in this very spot more than a century ago. And then she saw it. A small, almost imperceptible, indentation in the ground, a slight depression in the sand, located a few feet from the base of a tree, on the side facing away from the beach, hidden from casual view. "Samuel," she whispered, her voice filled with excitement. I think I found it." Samuel rushed to her side, his eyes following her gaze. He saw the indentation, the subtle change in the contour of the ground. He knelt down, probing the sand with his fingers. "You're right, Amelia," he said, his voice barely audible. "The ground here is softer. It's been disturbed." They looked at each other, their eyes filled with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. They were about to uncover a secret that had been buried for generations, a secret that could have far-reaching consequences. Samuel pulled out the small shovel they had brought, its metal gleaming in the fading light. He began to dig, carefully removing the sand, layer by layer, his movements slow and deliberate. Amelia watched him, her heart pounding, her breath held captive in her chest. The silence of the beach was broken only by the sound of the waves lapping against the shore, the cry of seagulls overhead, and the scraping of the shovel against the sand. As Samuel dug deeper, the indentation grew larger, revealing a hollow space beneath the surface. And then he hit something hard. He stopped digging, his eyes widening in surprise. He reached into the hole, his fingers brushing against something metallic. I think we found it, Amelia," he said, his voice filled with awe. He carefully cleared away the remaining sand, revealing a small, metal box, its surface rusted and corroded, but still intact. It was a strong box, a container designed to protect its contents from the elements, from the passage of time. They had found the Confederate gold. But their moment of triumph was short-lived. Before they could examine the box, before they could even begin to comprehend the magnitude of their discovery, they heard a sound, a voice, that shattered the silence of the beach. Well, the voice said, dripping with sarcasm. "Look what we have here. The treasure hunters." It was Charles, Amelia's nephew. He was standing a few feet away, his figure silhouetted against the setting sun, his expression a mixture of anger and greed. And he wasn't alone. Standing beside him were two men, burly and menacing, their faces obscured by the shadows, their presence radiating a sense of danger. They were clearly not lawyers or historians. Amelia felt a surge of fear, of adrenaline. This was not just a confrontation with her nephew, this was a threat, a potential act of violence. "Charles," Amelia said, her voice trembling slightly. "What are you doing here?" Charles smirked. "I followed you. "And Amelia," he said. "I knew you were up to something. I knew you'd found something valuable." He stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the metal box. "And it looks like I was right," he said, his voice laced with greed. "That's the gold, isn't it? The Confederate gold." Samuel stepped in front of Amelia, shielding her from Charles and his henchmen. "Stay away from us, Charles," he said, his voice firm and commanding. "This doesn't concern you." Charles laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Oh, it concerns me, Mr. Washington," he said. "It concerns me very much. That gold, it's mine. By rights. And I'm going to take it." He gestured to the two men beside him. "Get them," he ordered. The two men moved forward, their intentions clear. Amelia and Samuel were outnumbered, outmatched, their discovery of the Confederate gold turning into a desperate fight for survival. Before the men could reach them, however, a new voice interrupted the scene, a voice that was both authoritative and unexpected. "Hold it right there," the voice commanded. Everyone turned to see the source of the voice. It was Sheriff Brody, standing at the edge of the beach, his hand resting on his holstered pistol, his face grim, his eyes fixed on Charles and his henchmen. And behind him, stepping out of a black, unmarked car, was Detective Reynolds. "Charles Dubois," Reynolds said, his voice cold and professional, "you're under arrest." The centennial celebration had taken an unexpected turn. The auctioneer's gavel had fallen, not on a piece of art, but on a conspiracy. And the bidding was far from over. Chapter 14. Bonds forged in fire. And the bidding was far from over. The arrival of Sheriff Brody and Detective Reynolds had dramatically shifted the balance of power, transforming a tense standoff on a secluded beach into a scene of impending justice. Charles Dubois, his face paling, his confident smirk replaced by a look of stunned disbelief, found himself caught in a web of his own making, his dreams of ill-gotten riches dissolving before his eyes. What is the meaning of this? Charles stammered, his voice trembling. I haven't done anything wrong. Detective Reynolds stepped forward, his expression unwavering. You're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted theft, and obstruction of justice, Mr. Dubois, he said, his voice cold and precise. And these gentlemen, he added, gesturing to the two burly men, are your accomplices. The two men, their menacing demeanor replaced by a look of fear and resignation, offered no resistance as Sheriff Brody and his deputies moved in to handcuff them. They had been caught red-handed, their plans foiled, their hopes of claiming the Confederate gold dashed. Amelia and Samuel watched the scene unfold, their hearts pounding with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and a lingering sense of disbelief. They had been rescued, just in the nick of time, from a potentially dangerous situation. But how had the authorities known? How had they been found on this remote beach, at this precise moment? As Charles and his accomplices were being led away, Detective Reynolds approached Amelia and Samuel, his expression softening slightly. Are you two all right? He asked, his voice filled with concern. We're fine, Detective, Amelia said, her voice still shaking slightly. Thanks to you. We were tracking Charles, Reynolds explained. We had reason to believe he was involved in illegal activities. We didn't know about the gold, not until recently. He paused, his gaze shifting to Samuel. Mr. Washington, he said, his voice acknowledging Samuel's past, his expertise. Your call was instrumental in our investigation. Samuel nodded, his expression grim. He had contacted Reynolds, his old military contact, after deciphering Eleanor's message and realizing the potential danger, the national security implications of the hidden Confederate gold. He had known that he couldn't handle this alone, that he needed the help of law enforcement, of experts who could secure the treasure and investigate the conspiracy surrounding it. The gold, Amelia said, her voice hesitant. What will happen to it? Reynolds looked at the metal box, still partially buried in the sand, its rusted surface gleaming in the fading light. It will be taken into custody, Mrs. Dubois, he said. It's evidence in a criminal investigation. And it's also a historical artifact, a piece of our nation's past. He paused, then added, his voice softening. We'll do everything we can to ensure that it's preserved, protected, and ultimately returned to its rightful place. Amelia felt a sense of relief wash over her. The gold, the treasure that had caused so much conflict, so much greed, so much betrayal, would be safe. It would be protected, studied, and eventually displayed for the public, a testament to the history of Charleston, to the secrets of the past. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a final, fiery glow on the sky, Amelia and Samuel found themselves alone on the beach, the sound of the waves a soothing counterpoint to the drama that had just unfolded. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with a mixture of exhaustion, gratitude, and a deepening sense of connection. They had faced danger together, they had survived a confrontation, and they had emerged stronger, their bond forged in the fire of adversity. Thank you, Samuel, Amelia said softly, her voice filled with emotion. For everything. For saving me, for being here. Samuel smiled, his eyes reflecting the warmth of his affection, the depth of his respect for her. I told you, Amelia, he said. I'm with you, every step of the way. He reached out, taking her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. They stood there for a moment, their hands clasped together, their hearts connected, their spirits united in their shared experience, in their shared victory. The bonds forged in fire, the bonds of friendship, of trust, of a growing love, were stronger than ever. They had faced a threat, not just to Amelia's home, but to their lives, and they had prevailed, thanks to their courage, their resourcefulness, and the timely intervention of law enforcement. As they walked back towards their car, the first stars beginning to twinkle in the darkening sky, Amelia felt a sense of peace, of closure, of a chapter in her life finally coming to an end. The Confederate gold had been found, the conspirators had been apprehended, and her home, her heritage, her legacy were safe. But she also knew that this was not the end of their story, not the end of their journey. It was a new beginning, a chance to build a future together, a future free from the shadows of the past, a future filled with love, with art, with community, and with the enduring spirit of whispering pines. They reached the car, and as Samuel opened the door for her, he paused, his gaze meeting hers, his eyes filled with a question, a hesitant hope. "Amelia," he said softly, now that this is over, would you consider having dinner with me? A real dinner, I mean, not just working on a case." Amelia smiled, her heart swelling with a joy she had not thought possible just a few hours earlier. "I would love to, Samuel," she replied, her voice filled with warmth and affection. "I would love to have dinner with you." He smiled back, his eyes shining with happiness, with relief, with the promise of a new beginning. They got into the car, their hands brushing as they reached for their seatbelts, a fleeting contact that sent a shiver of anticipation through them both. As they drove away from Sullivan's Island, the lights of Charleston twinkling in the distance, they knew that their journey was far from over. But they also knew that they would face whatever came next, together, their bonds forged in fire, their love a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed dark and uncertain. They had a dinner date, and a future to plan. But first, Samuel had a phone call to make. Chapter 15. The Cost of Keeping Secrets. But first, Samuel had a phone call to make. The resolution of the immediate crisis on Sullivan's Island, the arrest of Charles and his accomplices, had brought a sense of relief, but it had also unearthed a deeper, more complex layer to the story. The Confederate gold, while secured, was not just a treasure, it was a symbol of a conspiracy that reached far beyond Charles's greed and Beatrice's machinations. Samuel, with his military background and his knowledge of codes and ciphers, recognized the potential implications, the national security concerns that might still be lingering. As they drove back towards Charleston, Samuel pulled over to the side of the road, the lights of the city twinkling in the distance, the night air filled with the scent of salt and the distant sound of waves. "I need to make a call, Amelia," he said, his voice serious, his expression somber. "To a friend. Someone who can help us understand the full scope of this situation." Amelia nodded, understanding his need for discretion, his concern for security. She trusted him implicitly, knowing that he would always act in her best interests, in the best interests of their community and of their country. Samuel stepped out of the car, his phone in hand, his back to Amelia, his voice low and guarded as he spoke. She couldn't hear the details of the conversation, but she could sense the gravity of it, the weight of the unspoken words, the potential implications of the secrets they had uncovered. She watched him, her heart filled with a mixture of concern and admiration. He was a man of integrity, a man of courage, a man who had faced danger before and who was now facing it again, not for personal gain, but for the sake of truth, for the sake of justice, for the sake of protecting the legacy of the past. The call lasted several minutes, the silence of the night punctuated only by Samuel's hushed tones and the distant sounds of the city. Finally, he ended the call, his expression grim, his eyes reflecting the weight of the information he had just received. He got back into the car, his movements slow and deliberate. He looked at Amelia, his gaze filled with a mixture of concern and a hint of resignation. "That was Reynolds," he said, his voice heavy. He's been promoted. He's with a different agency now." Amelia knew what he meant. Reynolds was no longer just a local detective, he was involved in national security, in matters that transcended the boundaries of Charleston, of South Carolina. "What did he say, Samuel?" she asked, her voice hesitant. Samuel sighed, running a hand through his hair, his gesture a sign of his weariness, his frustration. He said the gold is just the tip of the iceberg. "Amelia," he said, "there's more. Much more." He paused, his gaze meeting hers, his eyes filled with a deep, unsettling truth. Eleanor's message, it wasn't just about the gold, he continued. It was about a network. A network of Confederate sympathizers, operating in the shadows, even after the war. A network that may still be active today. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. A network? Still active? It seemed impossible, unbelievable. But she knew Samuel, and she knew that he wouldn't say such a thing unless he had reason to believe it was true. Well, what kind of network, Samuel? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. A network dedicated to preserving the ideals of the Confederacy, Samuel explained, his voice grim. To undermining the government, to rewriting history. He paused, then added, his voice barely audible. And they're looking for something. Something that Eleanor hid. Something that could be very dangerous in the wrong hands. Amelia's mind reeled. This was far bigger, far more complex than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just about a house or a treasure or a family feud. It was about a conspiracy, a threat to national security, a legacy of hatred and division that refused to die. Well, what are they looking for, Samuel? She asked, her voice trembling. Samuel hesitated, his eyes reflecting the weight of his knowledge, the burden of the secret he was about to reveal. They're looking for a list, he said finally, his voice low and serious. A list of names. Names of people, powerful people who were involved in the network, who supported the Confederacy, who may still be sympathetic to its cause. A list. Amelia's mind raced. A list of names hidden by Eleanor. A list that could expose a network of secret sympathizers. A list that could shake the foundations of power, of influence, of the very fabric of American society. And the gold? Amelia asked, her voice hesitant. What about the gold? The gold was just a means to an end, Amelia, Samuel explained. A way to fund their operations, to finance their activities. The list is the real treasure. The list is what they're really after. He paused, his gaze meeting hers, his eyes filled with a warning. And they'll stop at nothing to get it, Amelia, he said. Nothing. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine. They had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. They had uncovered a secret that could have devastating consequences, a secret that powerful people were willing to kill for. The cost of keeping secrets, of uncovering secrets, was high. They were caught in a web of intrigue, of conspiracy, of a past that refused to stay buried. What do we do, Samuel? She asked, her voice filled with fear and uncertainty. Samuel looked at her, his eyes reflecting his determination, his courage, his unwavering commitment to her and to the truth. We find the list, Amelia, he said, his voice firm. Before they do, they had a new mission, a new objective, a new race against time. They had to find the list, protect it, and expose the network before it was too late. But where was it? Chapter 16. A dance with the past. But where was it? The question, now more urgent than ever, echoed in their minds as they drove back to the cottage, the Charleston skyline receding behind them, the weight of their new mission pressing down on them. They had to find the list of names that Eleanor had hidden, the list that held the key to exposing a network of Confederate sympathizers, a network that might still be operating in the shadows, threatening the very foundations of American society. They knew that the list was somewhere in Charleston, hidden by Eleanor more than a century ago. But where? The city was filled with historic buildings, hidden rooms, secret passages, and countless potential hiding places. Finding the list would be like searching for a needle in a haystack, a daunting task that required not only skill and determination, but also a deep understanding of Eleanor's life, her mind, her motivations. As they reached the cottage, the familiar scent of jasmine and old wood offered a momentary sense of comfort, a brief respite from the anxieties that consumed them. But the ticking clock in the hidden room, a constant reminder of the passage of time, of the urgency of their mission, spurred them to action. They decided to start their search in the most logical place, the hidden room itself. It was where they had found Eleanor's diary, the coded letters, and the first clues to the conspiracy. It was possible, likely even, that the list was hidden somewhere within that same space, concealed by Eleanor with the same ingenuity and cunning she had used to protect her other secrets. They descended into the hidden room, the air cool and damp, the silence broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock. They systematically searched every corner of the room, every nook and cranny, every object, their eyes scanning for any sign of a hidden compartment, a false wall, a loose floorboard, anything that might conceal the precious list. They examined the old trunks, carefully lifting out the faded clothing, searching for any hidden pockets, any secret compartments. They sifted through the stacks of documents and books, looking for any annotations, any coded messages, any clue that might lead them to the list. They spent hours in the hidden room, their bodies growing weary, their eyes strained from the dim light, but their determination unwavering. They were driven by a sense of purpose, by a commitment to uncovering the truth, to honoring Eleanor's legacy, and to protecting their country from the shadows of the past. As the night wore on, and their search proved fruitless, a sense of frustration began to creep in. They had exhausted every obvious hiding place, every logical possibility. The list seemed to have vanished, swallowed up by time, by the secrets of the hidden room. Amelia sat down on a dusty crate, her head in her hands, her spirit flagging. "I don't know, Samuel," she said, her voice filled with despair. Maybe it's not here. Maybe we're wasting our time." Samuel knelt beside her, his hand reaching out to comfort her, his touch gentle and reassuring. "Don't give up, Amelia," he said softly. "We're close. I can feel it. We just need to think differently. To think like Eleanor." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room, his mind searching for a new angle, a new perspective. "Eleanor was a spy, Amelia," he continued. "She was resourceful, cunning, and she loved codes. She loved secrets." He looked at the grandfather clock, its pendulum swinging rhythmically, its hands frozen at 7:18. The clock. It had been ticking when they first entered the room, after being silent for who knew how long. "The clock, Amelia," he said suddenly, his voice filled with excitement. I think the clock is the key." Amelia looked at him, her eyes widening in surprise, then in understanding. The clock. Of course. It was the most prominent object in the room, the most obvious, and yet the most likely to be overlooked. Samuel approached the clock, his fingers tracing the intricate carvings on its wooden case, his eyes examining the details, searching for any sign of a hidden mechanism, a secret compartment. He remembered the first time they'd been in the room. He nudged the pendulum and made it tick again. And then Charles had done the same. It seemed to mean something. He opened the glass door, revealing the clock's face, its hands still frozen at 7:18. He carefully examined the numbers, the hands, the inner workings of the clock, searching for anything that seemed out of place, anything that might suggest a hidden purpose. And then he saw it. A small, almost imperceptible button, concealed beneath the number 7, cleverly disguised as part of the clock's decorative design. He pressed the button, his heart pounding with anticipation. A faint click echoed through the room, and a section of the clock's wooden case slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. Amelia gasped. "Samuel," she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. "You found it." Samuel reached into the compartment, his fingers brushing against something papery. He carefully pulled it out, revealing a small, rolled-up scroll, tied with a faded ribbon. It was the list. They had found it. Eleanor's secret, hidden for over a century, was finally in their hands. They unrolled the scroll, their hands trembling with excitement, with a sense of profound responsibility. The list was written in Eleanor's elegant handwriting, a series of names, some familiar, some unknown, all connected by a shared allegiance to the Confederacy, to a past that refused to die. As they examined the list, their excitement turned to a chilling realization. Some of the names were not just historical figures, they were the ancestors of prominent families in Charleston, families that still held positions of power, of influence, in the city, in the state, in the nation. The network, it seemed, was not just a relic of the past, it was a living entity, a web of influence that had survived the Civil War, that had adapted to the changing times, that still held sway in the present day. They had uncovered a conspiracy that reached far beyond the walls of the hidden room, far beyond the boundaries of Charleston. They had stumbled upon a secret that could shake the foundations of power, that could expose a hidden history of betrayal and deceit. They were not just historians, not just preservers of the past, they were players in a dangerous game, a dance with destiny, a confrontation with forces that would stop at nothing to protect their secrets, their power, their legacy. The dance had begun. But who was leading? Chapter 17. Letters from a Forgotten Soldier. But who was leading? The question hung in the air, a chilling reminder of the power and influence of the network they had uncovered, a network that had survived for generations, its tentacles reaching into the highest echelons of society. Amelia and Samuel, armed with Eleanor's list, found themselves caught in a web of intrigue, their lives potentially in danger, their every move scrutinized by unseen forces. They knew they couldn't keep the list to themselves, that they had a responsibility to expose the network, to bring its members to justice, to finally put an end to the legacy of treason and betrayal that had haunted Charleston for so long. But they also knew that they needed to be careful, strategic, and discreet. They couldn't simply hand the list over to the local authorities. They needed to find someone they could trust, someone with the power and the resources to investigate the network and to protect them from its reach. Samuel, with his military background and his connections to Detective Reynolds, now working for a federal agency, suggested reaching out to him again. Reynolds was a man of integrity, a dedicated law enforcement officer, and someone who understood the complexities of national security. He was also someone who had already proven his willingness to help them, to protect them from Charles and his accomplices. Amelia agreed, her trust in Samuel unwavering, her instincts telling her that Reynolds was their best hope, their only chance to bring the network to justice without putting themselves in further danger. They decided to leave the cottage, to find a secure location where they could contact Reynolds without being overheard, without being observed. They knew that they were being watched, that the network had eyes and ears everywhere, and that they needed to be extremely cautious. They drove to a secluded spot overlooking the Charleston harbor, a place where they could be alone, where they could speak freely, without fear of eavesdropping. The night was clear, the stars twinkling in the sky, the moon casting a silvery glow on the water. It was a beautiful, peaceful scene, but the beauty was deceptive, masking the danger that lurked beneath the surface. Samuel pulled out his phone, his hand trembling slightly. He dialed Reynolds' number, his heart pounding with anticipation, with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The phone rang several times, the silence stretching on, amplifying their anxieties. Finally, Reynolds answered, his voice guarded, cautious. "Reynolds," he said. "It's Samuel Washington," Samuel said, his voice low and urgent. "We need to talk. It's about the list." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then Reynolds' voice, now even more guarded, filled with a sense of urgency. "Where are you?" he asked. Samuel described their location, his eyes scanning the surroundings, searching for any sign of surveillance, any indication that they were being followed. "Stay put," Reynolds said. "I'm on my way." He ended the call, leaving Samuel and Amelia alone with their anxieties, with the weight of the secret they carried, with the knowledge that they were playing a dangerous game, a game with potentially deadly consequences. They waited, their bodies tense, their senses on high alert. The minutes stretched on, each one feeling like an eternity. The silence of the night was broken only by the sound of the waves lapping against the shore, the distant hum of traffic, and the beating of their own hearts. Finally, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance, approaching rapidly. It was Reynolds, driving an unmarked car, his face grim, his eyes reflecting the seriousness of the situation. He pulled up beside them, stepping out of the car, his gaze sweeping across the scene, assessing the surroundings. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "We're fine," Samuel said. "But we have something you need to see." He handed Reynolds the scroll, the list of names that Eleanor had hidden, the list that held the key to exposing the network. Reynolds unrolled the scroll, his eyes scanning the names, his expression shifting from curiosity to shock, to a deep, unsettling realization. He recognized some of the names, prominent figures in Charleston society, influential politicians, wealthy businessmen, people who held positions of power and trust. This is explosive. Samuel, he said, his voice barely a whisper. This could change everything. He looked at Amelia, his eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and concern. You two have stumbled upon something very dangerous, he said. This network, it's real. And it's powerful. He paused, then added, his voice firm. I'll take this list, Samuel, he said. I'll take it to my superiors. We'll launch a full-scale investigation. We'll expose these people. We'll bring them to justice. But before he could take the list, before they could hand over the evidence that could shatter the network, a new sound pierced the silence of the night. It was the sound of a car approaching, its engine roaring, its headlights blinding. And it was coming straight at them. Reynolds reacted instantly, pushing Amelia and Samuel out of the way, diving for cover as the car screeched to a halt, inches from where they had been standing. Several figures emerged from the car, their faces hidden in the shadows, their intentions clear. They were armed, and they were not there to talk. The network had found them, and they were not going to let them escape. Not with the list. Not alive. A firefight erupted, the quiet night shattered by the sound of gunfire, the flashes of light illuminating the scene, the smell of gunpowder filling the air. Samuel, drawing on his military training, returned fire, protecting Amelia, fighting for their lives. Reynolds, too, engaged the attackers, his experience and training evident in his precise movements, his deadly accuracy. But they were outnumbered, outgunned, their situation desperate. As the battle raged, Amelia found herself caught in the crossfire, her heart pounding with fear, her body trembling. She had never experienced anything like this, never imagined that her life would be in danger, that she would be caught in a violent confrontation, a battle between good and evil, between the past and the present. She saw Samuel, his face grim, his body tense, his movements precise as he fought to protect her, to defend them both. She saw the courage in his eyes, the determination, the unwavering commitment to doing what was right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And then she saw something else. Among the attackers, a figure emerged from the shadows, a figure she recognized, a figure that sent a chill down her spine. It was Beatrice, holding a small pistol. And she wasn't aiming at Reynolds, or even Samuel. She was aiming at her. Chapter 18. Between Duty and Devotion. She was aiming at her. The realization hit Amelia like a physical blow, the shock of seeing Beatrice, her own aunt, pointing a gun at her, threatening her life, adding another layer of betrayal to the already complex and dangerous situation. It was a moment of stark clarity, a brutal confirmation of Beatrice's ruthlessness, her desperation, her willingness to do anything to protect the network, to silence anyone who threatened to expose its secrets. Time seemed to slow down, the scene unfolding in a surreal, dreamlike sequence. Amelia saw the hatred in Beatrice's eyes, the cold determination on her face, the slight tremor in her hand as she held the pistol, aiming it directly at Amelia's heart. She saw Samuel, his back to Beatrice, engaged in a firefight with the other attackers, unaware of the immediate danger she faced. She saw Reynolds, also engaged in the battle, his attention focused on the immediate threat, unable to intervene. Amelia knew that she had to act, to do something, to save herself. But her body was frozen, paralyzed by fear, by the sheer disbelief of the situation. She was trapped, a target in Beatrice's sights, her life hanging in the balance. Beatrice. No. Amelia cried out, her voice a desperate plea, a futile attempt to reason with a woman consumed by hatred and driven by a desperate desire to protect a legacy of lies. Beatrice didn't respond, her eyes unwavering, her finger tightening on the trigger. She was about to fire, about to end Amelia's life, about to silence the truth forever. But then, something unexpected happened. A shot rang out, not from Beatrice's pistol, but from somewhere behind her. Beatrice gasped, her eyes widening in surprise, her body jerking violently. The pistol slipped from her grasp, clattering to the ground unfired. Beatrice stumbled, her hand clutching her shoulder, a crimson stain spreading across her expensive silk blouse. She looked down at her wound, her expression a mixture of pain, disbelief, and rage. She turned, her eyes searching for the source of the shot, her gaze settling on Samuel. Samuel stood there, his own pistol still raised, smoke curling from the barrel, his face grim, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and regret. He had shot Beatrice, his own relative, to save Amelia's life. It was a moment of profound moral complexity, a choice between duty and devotion, between protecting a life and taking one, between upholding the law and resorting to violence. Samuel had made his choice, driven by his love for Amelia, by his commitment to protecting her, by his unwavering belief in justice. The other attackers, momentarily stunned by the sudden turn of events, hesitated, their assault faltering. Reynolds seized the opportunity, pressing his attack, his shots finding their marks, forcing the remaining assailants to retreat. The firefight ended as quickly as it had begun, the silence of the night once again broken only by the sound of the waves, the distant sirens of approaching police cars, and the ragged breathing of those who had survived the confrontation. Reynolds rushed to Beatrice's side, checking her wound, his expression grim. "She'll live," he said, his voice tight with anger. "But she'll face justice. For this, and for everything else." He looked at Samuel, his eyes filled with a mixture of understanding and gratitude. "You saved her life, Samuel," he said. "Thank you." Samuel nodded, his face pale, his body trembling from the adrenaline rush, from the emotional toll of the night's events. He holstered his pistol, his hand shaking slightly. He had never wanted to use violence, never wanted to take a life, but he had done what he had to do, to protect the woman he loved. He turned to Amelia, his eyes searching hers, his heart filled with a profound sense of relief, of gratitude that she was safe, unharmed. Amelia rushed to him, embracing him tightly, her body trembling, her tears flowing freely. "Samuel," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. You saved my life." He held her close, his arms a protective shield, his presence a source of comfort and strength. "I told you, Amelia," he said softly. "I'm with you, every step of the way." They stood there, embraced in each other's arms, the chaos of the night receding, the bond between them stronger than ever, forged in the crucible of danger, of shared trauma, of a love that had been tested and proven true. As the police sirens grew louder and the flashing lights illuminated the scene, Amelia and Samuel knew that their lives had changed forever. They had faced death, they had confronted evil, and they had emerged victorious, but not unscathed. The cost of keeping secrets, of uncovering secrets, had been high. But the bonds forged in fire, the bonds of love, of loyalty, of a shared commitment to justice, had proven to be even stronger. They had a long road ahead of them, a road filled with legal battles, with investigations, with the difficult task of exposing the network and bringing its members to justice. But they would face it together, their love a guiding light, their courage a shield, their determination unwavering. They had a future to build, a legacy to protect, and a love to cherish. The immediate danger was over, and they had survived. But the larger fight continued. And they were ready. Chapter 19. The Price of Freedom. And they were ready. The violent confrontation on Sullivan's Island had been a turning point, a crucible that had tested their courage, their resilience, and their love. They had survived, but the battle was far from over. They were now engaged in a larger war, a struggle against a hidden enemy, a network of Confederate sympathizers that had operated in the shadows for generations, its influence reaching into the highest echelons of power. The days that followed were a blur of activity, of legal proceedings, of police investigations, of media scrutiny. Amelia and Samuel found themselves thrust into the spotlight, their lives dissected, their actions scrutinized, their story sensationalized by the press. Beatrice, recovering from her gunshot wound, was arrested and charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, and a host of other crimes related to the network and the hidden Confederate gold. Charles, his dreams of riches shattered, his reputation ruined, was also facing charges, his role in the conspiracy exposed, his future bleak. The list of names, Eleanor's hidden legacy, became the focal point of a massive federal investigation led by Detective Reynolds and his agency. The names on the list sparked a firestorm of controversy, revealing a web of connections, of influence, of hidden allegiances that shook the foundations of Charleston society and beyond. Prominent families, wealthy businessmen, influential politicians, all found themselves under scrutiny, their past actions, their family histories, their political affiliations, dissected and analyzed. Some were innocent, their ancestors' involvement in the Confederacy a matter of historical record, but not of present-day allegiance. Others, however, were not so innocent, their connections to the network proving to be more than just historical. They were active participants, perpetuating the legacy of hatred and division. The investigation was met with resistance, with denials, with legal challenges, and with attempts to discredit Amelia and Samuel, to paint them as fanatics, as troublemakers, as people obsessed with the past. But they persevered, their determination unwavering, their commitment to the truth absolute. They were supported by a growing number of people, both within Charleston and beyond, who were outraged by the revelations, who demanded justice, who believed in the importance of confronting the past, of healing the wounds of history, of building a future based on equality, on justice, and on a shared commitment to the ideals of American democracy. Amelia, despite the stress, the pressure, and the constant threat of retaliation, found a new sense of purpose, a new strength within herself. She had become a symbol of resistance, of courage, of the unwavering pursuit of truth. She spoke out publicly, sharing her story, her family's history, and her commitment to preserving the legacy of those who had fought for freedom and equality. Samuel, too, found himself thrust into a new role, a role he had never sought, but one he embraced with his characteristic quiet strength and unwavering integrity. He became a spokesman for the truth, a voice for those who had been silenced, a champion of justice and reconciliation. Their love, tested by fire, deepened and matured, becoming a source of strength, of comfort, of unwavering support. They faced the challenges together, their bond unbreakable, their commitment to each other absolute. As the investigation progressed and the network began to unravel, Amelia and Samuel found themselves facing a new dilemma. The Confederate gold, recovered from Sullivan's Island, was now in the custody of the federal government. Its value was immense, its historical significance undeniable. But what should be done with it? There were many competing claims, many different opinions. Some argued that the gold should be returned to the descendants of the Confederate soldiers, the rightful heirs of the treasure. Others argued that it should be used to fund historical preservation efforts, to educate future generations about the Civil War and its legacy. Still others argued that it should be used to benefit the descendants of enslaved people, as a form of reparations for the injustices of the past. Amelia and Samuel, deeply involved in the discussions, found themselves torn between competing loyalties, between different conceptions of justice, between the need to honor the past and the need to build a better future. They realized that there was no easy answer, no simple solution. The gold was a symbol of a complex and painful history, a history filled with conflict, with oppression, with injustice, but also with courage, with resilience, with the enduring struggle for freedom and equality. They decided to consult with community leaders, with historians, with representatives of various organizations, seeking a consensus, a way to use the gold in a manner that would honor the past, promote healing, and contribute to a more just and equitable future. After much deliberation, a plan was developed, a compromise that sought to address the competing claims and to use the gold in a way that would benefit the entire community. A portion of the gold would be used to establish a museum, a center for the study of the Civil War and its legacy, a place where the history of Charleston, in all its complexity and contradictions, could be explored, understood, and shared with future generations. Another portion would be used to fund educational programs, scholarships, and initiatives that would promote racial equality, economic justice, and social harmony. And a final portion would be used to support the preservation of historical landmarks, including Amelia's ancestral home, ensuring that the tangible reminders of the past would be protected and preserved for future generations. The plan was not perfect, and it did not satisfy everyone. But it was a step forward, a step towards healing, towards reconciliation, towards building a future where the lessons of the past could be learned, where the injustices of the past could be addressed, and where the promise of equality and justice for all could be realized. The price of freedom, they realized, was not just paid in the past, it was a continuing cost, a constant struggle, a commitment to upholding the ideals of democracy, of equality, of justice for all. They had paid a price. Many had. But the future looked brighter. Because of it. Chapter 20. Ghosts of Meeting Street. But the future looked brighter. Because of it. The resolution regarding the Confederate gold, the establishment of the museum, the funding of educational programs, and the preservation of historical landmarks all represented a significant step forward, a victory for justice, for reconciliation, and for the enduring spirit of Charleston. Amelia and Samuel, having played a crucial role in uncovering the truth and shaping the future, could finally breathe a sigh of relief, their burden lightened, their hope renewed. However, the ghosts of the past, particularly those that lingered along the cobblestone streets of Charleston's historic district, were not so easily laid to rest. The exposure of the Confederate network, the arrest of its members, and the ongoing investigations had sent ripples through the community, unsettling long-held beliefs, challenging established power structures, and forcing a reckoning with the city's complex and often painful history. While many welcomed the revelations, embracing the opportunity for healing and reconciliation, others resisted, clinging to outdated notions of Southern pride, denying the extent of the network's influence, and attempting to discredit Amelia and Samuel, to portray them as troublemakers, as radicals, as outsiders seeking to disrupt the established order. Amelia and Samuel found themselves facing a new kind of challenge, a battle for the hearts and minds of the community, a struggle to overcome the lingering divisions of the past and to build a future based on truth, justice, and mutual respect. They were not alone in this struggle. They were supported by a growing coalition of citizens, historians, activists, and community leaders who believed in the importance of confronting the past, of acknowledging the injustices of slavery and the Confederacy, and of working towards a more inclusive and equitable future. The Historical Society, once a relatively quiet and unassuming organization, became a focal point of this movement, a platform for dialogue, for education, and for promoting a more nuanced and accurate understanding of Charleston's history. Amelia, with her deep connection to the past and her unwavering commitment to the truth, became a leading voice in the society, her speeches and presentations inspiring others to join the cause, to embrace the challenge of building a better future. Samuel, too, played a crucial role, using his historical expertise, his analytical skills, and his quiet but forceful demeanor to counter the narratives of denial and distortion, to present the facts, to expose the lies, and to promote a more honest and inclusive understanding of Charleston's past. They organized public forums, lectures, and workshops, inviting historians, scholars, and community members to share their perspectives, to engage in dialogue, and to explore the complexities of Charleston's history. They worked with local schools to develop educational programs that would teach students about the Civil War, about slavery, about the civil rights movement, and about the ongoing struggle for racial equality and social justice. They also faced opposition, sometimes fierce and vocal, from those who clung to the lost cause mythology, who romanticized the Confederacy, and who resisted any attempt to challenge their cherished beliefs. There were protests, counter-demonstrations, and online attacks, attempts to silence Amelia and Samuel, to discredit their work, to undermine their efforts to promote a more truthful and inclusive understanding of history. But they persevered, their determination unwavering, their commitment to the truth absolute. They knew that they were fighting for something important, something that transcended their personal struggles, something that would shape the future of their community, of their city, of their nation. One evening, as they were walking home from a particularly contentious Historical Society meeting, they found themselves on Meeting Street, one of Charleston's most iconic thoroughfares, lined with historic houses, churches, and public buildings. The street was quiet, the gas lamps casting a soft, flickering glow on the cobblestones, the air filled with the scent of jasmine and the distant sound of horse-drawn carriages. As they walked, they passed by houses where prominent Confederate figures had once lived, houses that had witnessed the planning of secession, the celebration of Confederate victories, and the despair of defeat. They passed by churches where sermons had been preached justifying slavery, where prayers had been offered for the success of the Confederate cause. They felt the weight of history, the presence of the past, the ghosts of Meeting Street, whispering their stories, their secrets, their struggles. They felt a sense of responsibility, of a duty to honor those who had fought for freedom and equality, to expose the lies and distortions of the past, and to build a future where such injustices would never again be tolerated. Amelia stopped, her gaze drawn to a particular house, a grand, imposing mansion with tall columns and a wide veranda. It was the house where General Beauregard, the Confederate officer mentioned in Eleanor's coded message, had once resided. "This is it, Samuel," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "This is where it all happened. This is where she risked her life to fight for what she believed in." Samuel nodded, his eyes reflecting the weight of history, the significance of the place. He, too, felt the presence of the past, the echoes of a time when the nation had been torn apart by conflict, by hatred, by the struggle for freedom and equality. They stood there for a moment, in silence, their hearts filled with a mixture of sadness, anger, and a renewed sense of determination. They knew that the ghosts of Meeting Street, the ghosts of Charleston's past, could not be ignored, could not be erased. They had to be confronted, their stories told, their lessons learned. As they continued their walk, they noticed something else, something that sent a shiver of hope down their spines. On the doorsteps of some of the houses, they saw small, flickering lights, candles placed in windows, lanterns hanging from porches. It was a silent protest, a subtle act of defiance, a sign that not everyone in Charleston clung to the past, that there were those who embraced the future, who believed in justice, in equality, in a more inclusive and truthful understanding of history. The lights were a glimmer of hope, a sign that the tide was turning, that the voices of truth and reconciliation were growing stronger, that the ghosts of Meeting Street were slowly being laid to rest. They had a long way to go. There would be resistance. But they also had allies. And they would not be silenced. Chapter 21. A relative's betrayal. The future looked bright, yes, but the past had a nasty habit of refusing to stay buried. Amelia and Samuel's commitment to building a life together, to embracing a future filled with love and purpose, was a powerful force, but it was not immune to the lingering shadows of betrayal and greed that still clung to the edges of their lives. The immediate threat, the legal challenge to Amelia's ownership of the Dubois house, had been neutralized thanks to the discovery of the original land grant clause and Samuel's quick thinking. Mr. Harrison, the lawyer representing Charles and Beatrice, had been forced to withdraw his claim, his case crumbling under the weight of historical evidence and legal precedent. But Charles and Beatrice, though defeated, were not vanquished. Their resentment, their greed, their sense of entitlement still simmered, fueled by a deep-seated belief that they had been cheated out of their rightful inheritance. They were like wounded animals, cornered and dangerous, their next move unpredictable. Amelia tried to put them out of her mind, to focus on the positive, on her blossoming relationship with Samuel, on the success of the museum, on the growing movement for historical truth and reconciliation in Charleston. But she couldn't shake the feeling of unease, the sense that Charles and Beatrice were still lurking in the shadows, plotting their revenge, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Her fears were confirmed one afternoon when she received a phone call from Sheriff Brody, his voice grave, his tone urgent. "Amelia," he said, "I need you to come down to the station. It's about Charles." Amelia's heart sank. She knew, instinctively, that this was not good news. She felt a wave of dread wash over her, a premonition of further trouble, of another attack on her family, her home, her legacy. She drove to the station, her hands trembling on the steering wheel, her mind racing with possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. What had Charles done now? Had he found another legal loophole? Had he resorted to violence? Had he somehow managed to involve Beatrice again, despite her being under house arrest pending trial? She arrived at the station, her heart pounding with apprehension. Sheriff Brody met her in the lobby, his expression somber, his eyes filled with a mixture of concern and pity. "Amelia," he said, his voice low and serious. "I'm afraid I have some bad news. Charles, he's been arrested again." "Arrested?" Amelia repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "For what?" "For theft," Brody said. "And vandalism." He paused, then added, his voice filled with a weary resignation. "He broke into the museum, Amelia. He destroyed some of the exhibits." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. The museum. The place she and Samuel had worked so hard to create. The place that housed Eleanor's diary, the coded letters, the artifacts that told the story of her family, of Charleston, of the struggle for freedom and equality. The diary? Amelia stammered, her voice trembling. "Eleanor's diary? Is it?" Sheriff Brody shook his head. "I'm sorry, Amelia," he said. It's gone. He took it." Amelia felt a wave of despair wash over her, a crushing sense of loss. The diary, the key to understanding Eleanor's life, her secrets, her courage, was gone. Stolen by her own nephew, a man driven by greed, by resentment, by a desperate desire to destroy everything she held dear. It was more than theft. It was a violation, a personal attack, an attempt to erase history, to silence the voices of the past. Amelia felt a surge of anger, of righteous indignation, but it was quickly replaced by a profound sadness, a grief for the loss of the diary, for the damage that Charles had done, for the broken bonds of family, for the enduring power of greed and betrayal. "We'll find it, Amelia," Sheriff Brody said, his voice firm. "We'll find him, and we'll recover the diary. I promise you." Amelia nodded, her tears flowing freely. She knew that Brody would do everything in his power to help her, but she also knew that the damage was done, that the theft of the diary was a blow that would be difficult to recover from. She spent the rest of the day at the museum, assessing the damage, comforting the staff, and trying to make sense of Charles's actions. The exhibits were vandalized, yes, but the most significant loss was the diary, the irreplaceable artifact that held the key to understanding Eleanor's life and the secrets of the hidden Confederate network. Samuel arrived at the museum, his face etched with concern, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and a fierce determination. He had heard about the break-in, about Charles's arrest, about the stolen diary, and he had rushed to Amelia's side, his presence a source of comfort and strength. "I'm so sorry, Amelia," he said, his voice filled with emotion. This is devastating." Amelia managed a weak smile. "We'll get through this, Samuel," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We always do." But even as she spoke the words, she felt a flicker of doubt, a sense of vulnerability. Charles's actions had shaken her, had undermined her confidence, had reminded her of the fragility of her world, of the constant threat posed by those who sought to destroy her heritage, her legacy. As they surveyed the damage, Samuel noticed something that the police had overlooked. A small scrap of paper, torn from a larger document, lying on the floor near the display case where the diary had been kept. He picked it up, his eyes narrowing as he examined it. It was a piece of parchment, old and brittle, with a few words written on it in faded ink. The words were in code. The same code. It was a message. From Charles. Or to him. But from whom? And what did it say? Chapter 22. The Truth Unveiled. But from whom? And what did it say? The questions raced through Samuel's mind as he examined the scrap of parchment, the coded message a tantalizing clue, a potential breakthrough in the increasingly complex and dangerous situation they found themselves in. Charles's theft of the diary, while devastating, had inadvertently left behind a breadcrumb, a fragment of information that might lead them to the truth, to the forces behind his actions, to the network that still sought to control the narrative of the past. Samuel recognized the code immediately. It was the same cipher used by Eleanor in her letters and diary, the complex system of symbols and substitutions that he had painstakingly deciphered. He knew he could break this code, too, but he needed time, a quiet place to work, and the resources to analyze the message and uncover its meaning. He showed the scrap of paper to Amelia, his eyes filled with a mixture of excitement and concern. This could be important, Amelia, he said. It's a coded message. I think it's from whoever Charles was working with. Amelia's heart quickened with hope. A coded message. A clue. Perhaps the diary wasn't lost forever. Perhaps this message would lead them to it, to Charles, to the truth. Can you decipher it, Samuel? She asked, her voice filled with urgency. Samuel nodded. Yes, he said. But I need to get back to the cottage. I need my tools, my notes. They left the museum, the scene of Charles's betrayal still fresh in their minds, the weight of the stolen diary heavy on their hearts. They drove back to the cottage, the silence in the car punctuated only by the sound of the engine and the unspoken anxieties that filled the space between them. As soon as they arrived, Samuel went straight to his makeshift workspace in a hidden room, the familiar surroundings, the ticking clock, the echoes of Eleanor's presence, a source of comfort and inspiration. He spread out the scrap of paper, his code-breaking tools, and his notes from his previous deciphering efforts, his mind already working, analyzing the symbols, searching for patterns, piecing together the puzzle of the coded message. Amelia watched him, her heart filled with admiration for his intelligence, his dedication, his unwavering focus. She knew that he was their best hope, their only chance to recover the diary, to expose the network, to protect their future. Hours passed, the only sounds in the room the scratching of Samuel's pen on paper, the occasional sigh of frustration or murmur of discovery, and the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock, a constant reminder of the passage of time, of the urgency of their task. Finally, as the moon rose high in the sky, casting a silvery glow on the landscape, Samuel let out a gasp, his eyes widening in realization. I've got it, he exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement. I've broken the code. Amelia rushed to his side, her heart pounding with anticipation. What does it say, Samuel? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. What's the message? Samuel looked at her, his expression a mixture of triumph and concern. It's an instruction, he said. A directive to Charles. He took a deep breath, then began to translate the message, his voice steady and clear, revealing the truth that had been hidden in plain sight. The message says, destroy the evidence. Silence the historian. The legacy must be protected. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Destroy the evidence? She whispered. Silence the historian? She understood immediately. The evidence was Eleanor's diary, the proof of the Confederate network's existence, the key to exposing their secrets. And the historian, it was Samuel. The message was a death threat. A direct order to Charles to eliminate Samuel, to silence him permanently, to prevent him from revealing the truth. Amelia felt a wave of fear wash over her, a chilling realization of the danger they were in. The network was not just a relic of the past, it was a present and active threat, willing to resort to violence, to murder, to protect its secrets, its power, its legacy. Samuel, she said, her voice trembling. They were going to kill you. Samuel nodded, his expression grim. I know, Amelia, he said. But they failed. Charles is in custody, the diary as well. It's missing, but we have this message. We have proof of their intentions. He paused, his gaze meeting hers, his eyes filled with a fierce determination. We need to go to Reynolds, Amelia, he said. We need to show him this message. We need to expose them. All of them. Amelia agreed, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and resolve. They had to act quickly, decisively, before the network had a chance to regroup, to retaliate, to silence them permanently. They gathered the scrap of paper, Samuel's notes, and the other evidence they had collected, preparing to leave for the police station, to share their discovery with Reynolds, to bring the network to justice. But as they were about to leave the hidden room, Amelia noticed something she had overlooked before. On the back of the scrap of paper, hidden beneath the coded message, was a faint, almost imperceptible inscription. It was a single word, written in Eleanor's elegant handwriting. Magnolia. Magnolia. Amelia's mind raced. What did it mean? Was it a clue? A location? A code name? She showed the inscription to Samuel, her eyes searching his for understanding, for an explanation. Samuel examined the word, his brow furrowed in concentration. Magnolia, he repeated, his voice thoughtful. It could be anything, Amelia. A place, a person, a symbol. He paused, then added, his voice filled with a sudden realization. Wait a minute, he said. Magnolia Cemetery. Magnolia Cemetery. One of Charleston's oldest and most historic cemeteries, a place of beauty, of peace, of remembrance. A place where generations of Charlestonians were buried, their stories etched in stone, their secrets hidden beneath the earth. Could the diary be hidden in Magnolia Cemetery? It seemed like a long shot, but it was a possibility, a lead they couldn't ignore. The word held a feeling, a sense of urgency. We need to go there, Samuel, Amelia said, her voice filled with a sudden conviction. I have a feeling that we'll find something there. Something important. They had a coded message, a plan, and a possible location. The truth was about to be unveiled. Chapter 23. Under a Charleston sky. The truth was about to be unveiled. The single word, Magnolia, inscribed on the back of the coded message, had ignited a spark of intuition in Amelia, a feeling that the sprawling, historic Magnolia Cemetery held the key to recovering Eleanor's diary and exposing the full extent of the Confederate network's reach. They left the cottage, the night air cool and crisp, the Charleston sky ablaze with stars, a stark contrast to the darkness and danger that lurked beneath the surface of their seemingly peaceful city. They drove to Magnolia Cemetery, their hearts pounding with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, their minds racing with possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. Magnolia Cemetery, established in 1849, was a vast, sprawling necropolis, a city of the dead, filled with elaborate mausoleums, towering monuments, and weathered headstones, all surrounded by ancient oaks draped with Spanish moss, creating an atmosphere of both beauty and melancholy. It was a place of remembrance, of reflection, of connection to the past, but it was also a place of secrets, of hidden stories, of lives lived and lost. They parked the car near the entrance, the wrought iron gates casting long, eerie shadows in the moonlight. The cemetery was officially closed for the night, but Samuel, using his connections with Reynolds, had obtained permission to enter, to search for the diary, to uncover the truth that lay hidden beneath the hallowed ground. They stepped through the gates, their footsteps echoing on the paved pathways, the silence of the night broken only by the rustling of leaves, the hooting of an owl, and the distant murmur of the city. They felt the weight of history, the presence of the past, the spirits of those who were buried there, their stories whispering in the wind. Where do we start, Samuel? Amelia asked, her voice barely a whisper. This place is enormous. Samuel looked around, his eyes scanning the landscape, searching for any clue, any sign that might lead them to the diary. He remembered the coded message, the directive to Charles, destroy the evidence. Silence the historian. The network clearly believed the diary was a significant threat, something worth killing for. That meant it had to be hidden somewhere secure. Somewhere not easily found. Somewhere with meaning. Eleanor, Samuel said, his voice thoughtful. We need to think like Eleanor. Where would she hide something precious, something she wanted to protect, but also something she wanted to be found, eventually? Amelia nodded, her mind racing. She thought of Eleanor, of her courage, her intelligence, her love for Captain Harrison, her commitment to the Union cause. She thought of the hidden room, the coded letters, the diary itself, all carefully concealed, yet ultimately discovered. Family, Amelia said suddenly, her voice filled with realization. She would hide it with family, with someone she trusted, someone she loved. Samuel's eyes widened.
Of course, he said.
The Dubois family plot. That's where we need to start. They consulted a map of the cemetery, locating the Dubois family plot, a section reserved for generations of Amelia's ancestors, a place where Eleanor's parents, siblings, and other relatives were buried. They made their way through the cemetery, their flashlights illuminating the pathways, the headstones, the monuments, casting long, eerie shadows that danced among the trees. They passed by elaborate mausoleums, adorned with sculptures of angels and weeping willows, testaments to the wealth and status of Charleston's elite families. They passed by simple headstones, marked with faded inscriptions, reminders of the lives lost, the stories untold. Finally, they reached the Dubois family plot, a secluded area surrounded by a low, wrought iron fence, its entrance marked by a small, arched gateway. They stepped inside, their hearts pounding with anticipation, with a growing sense of connection to the past. They began their search, their eyes scanning the headstones, the inscriptions, searching for any sign of Eleanor, any clue that might lead them to the diary. They found the graves of Amelia's parents, her grandparents, her great-aunts and uncles, all familiar names, all part of her family history. But there was no marker for Eleanor. No headstone, no inscription, no indication that she had ever been buried there. Amelia felt a pang of sadness, of loss. Eleanor had disappeared from Whispering Pines after Robert's death, her fate unknown. It seemed she had also disappeared from the family plot, her final resting place a mystery. "She's not here, Samuel," Amelia said, her voice filled with disappointment. "Eleanor, she's not here." Samuel put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Don't give up, Amelia," he said. "She might be buried somewhere else in the cemetery. Or maybe she's not buried here at all." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the family plot, his mind searching for another angle, another possibility. "But the word Magnolia was put there for a reason," he continued. He looked at the headstones again, more closely. There were names, dates, and epitaphs. And then he saw it. On her father's headstone. A quote from Shakespeare. "Good night, good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow, that I shall say good night till it be morrow." He examined it closer. The quote was correct, but the attribution was wrong. It said Romeo and Magnolia, not Romeo and Juliet. He touched the letters. The mag was slightly raised. He pushed it. A faint click echoed through the silent graveyard. A section of the headstone itself slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. Amelia gasped. "Samuel, you found it." Samuel reached into the compartment, his fingers brushing against something leathery. He carefully pulled it out. It was a small, leather-bound book. It was Eleanor's diary. They had found it. Against all odds, against the network's attempts to destroy it, against the passage of time, they had recovered the diary, the key to exposing the truth, to honoring Eleanor's legacy, to protecting their future. They stood there, under the Charleston sky, surrounded by the ghosts of the past, the diary clutched in their hands, a symbol of hope, of resilience, of the enduring power of truth. The moon illuminated the scene, and the stars twinkled. But so did something else. In the distance, a light. And it was moving towards them. Chapter 24. Reclaiming the Legacy. A light. And it was moving towards them. The distant beam, cutting through the darkness of Magnolia Cemetery, shattered the moment of triumph, replacing it with a surge of adrenaline, a chilling reminder that they were not alone, that the network was still out there, that the fight for the truth was far from over. Amelia and Samuel exchanged a look of alarm, their hearts pounding. They had found the diary, yes, but they were now exposed, vulnerable, their presence in the cemetery known to whoever was approaching. "We need to go, Samuel," Amelia whispered, her voice urgent.
"Now."
Samuel nodded, his mind racing, assessing their options. They couldn't risk a confrontation. Not here. Not in the open. They needed to get to safety, to protect the diary, to regroup and plan their next move. He quickly closed the hidden compartment in the headstone, concealing the evidence of their discovery. Then, he grabbed Amelia's hand and they began to run, their footsteps echoing through the silent graveyard, their shadows dancing among the tombstones, the mausoleums, the ancient oak trees. They ran towards the cemetery gates, their lungs burning, their legs aching, the distant light growing brighter, closer, with each passing second. They could hear the sound of an engine, a car approaching, its headlights sweeping across the landscape, searching for them. They reached the gates, fumbling with the latch, their hands trembling with fear and urgency. They finally managed to open the gates, slipping through just as the car roared into view, its headlights blinding them, its horn blaring. They didn't look back. They ran towards their own car, parked a short distance away, their only thought to escape, to get to safety, to protect the diary. They jumped into the car, Samuel starting the engine, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. He slammed the car into reverse, backing out of the parking space, tires screeching, then sped away, leaving the cemetery, the approaching car, and the unknown pursuers behind. They drove in silence, their hearts pounding, their minds racing. They didn't know who was chasing them, but they knew that they were dangerous, that they were connected to the network, and that they would stop at nothing to get their hands on the diary. "Where were we going, Samuel?" Amelia asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Somewhere safe," Samuel replied, his voice grim. "Somewhere they won't find us." He drove through the streets of Charleston, his eyes constantly scanning the rearview mirror, searching for any sign of pursuit. He took a circuitous route, avoiding the main thoroughfares, sticking to the back streets, the alleyways, trying to lose any potential followers. Finally, he pulled into a small, secluded parking garage, hidden beneath an old apartment building, a place where they could be relatively safe, at least for the moment. He turned off the engine, plunging the car into darkness. They sat there, in silence, their bodies tense, their senses on high alert. The only sound was their own breathing, the distant hum of the city, and the beating of their own hearts. Amelia looked at Samuel, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and gratitude. "Thank you, Samuel," she whispered, for everything." Samuel smiled, a tired, weary smile that reflected the strain of the night's events. "We're not out of the woods yet, Amelia," he said. "But we're together. And we have the diary." He reached into his jacket, pulling out the leather-bound book, its surface worn and faded, its pages filled with Eleanor's secrets, with the truth that could expose the network and bring its members to justice. "We need to get this to Reynolds," Samuel said, his voice firm. "He's the only one we can trust." Amelia nodded, her heart filled with a renewed sense of determination. They had come so far, they had overcome so many obstacles, and they were not going to give up now. They were going to fight for the truth, for justice, for the legacy of Eleanor, for the future of Charleston. They decided to wait until morning, to contact Reynolds when they could be sure of a secure communication, when they could arrange a meeting in a safe location. They spent the rest of the night in the car, huddled together, trying to get some rest, but sleep was elusive, their minds racing with anxieties, with plans, with the constant fear of discovery. As the first rays of dawn began to creep through the windows of the parking garage, Amelia and Samuel emerged, their bodies stiff and aching, their eyes tired but resolute. They drove to a nearby diner, a small, unassuming place where they could get some coffee and breakfast and where they could plan their next move. They sat in a booth, their faces hidden in the shadows, their voices low and guarded. They discussed their options, their strategies, their concerns. "We need to be careful, Amelia," Samuel said, his voice serious. "The network, they're powerful. And they're ruthless. They won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who stands in their way." Amelia nodded, her heart filled with a chilling realization of the danger they were in. "I know, Samuel," she said, "but we can't back down. We have to expose them. We have to bring them to justice." They agreed to contact Reynolds as soon as possible, to arrange a meeting, to hand over the diary, to provide him with all the information they had gathered. They also agreed to be extra cautious, to avoid any unnecessary risks, to protect themselves and the diary at all costs. As they were finishing their breakfast, Amelia noticed a familiar figure entering the diner. It was Sheriff Brody, his face drawn and weary, his eyes searching the room. He spotted them, his expression shifting to relief. He approached their booth, his hand resting on his holstered pistol, a reminder of the danger that still lurked, even in the familiar surroundings of a small-town diner. "Amelia, Samuel," he said, his voice low and urgent. "I've been looking for you. We need to talk." He sat down at their booth. Beatrice is talking. Chapter 25. The Heart of the Historical Society. Beatrice is talking. Sheriff Brody's words hung in the air, a mixture of relief and apprehension washing over Amelia and Samuel. Beatrice, cornered, facing a mountain of evidence and a lengthy prison sentence, had apparently decided to cooperate with the authorities, to spill the secrets she had guarded for so long, to betray the network she had once so fiercely protected. "What is she saying, Sheriff?" Samuel asked, his voice calm but urgent. Brody sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. "She's confirmed everything," he said. "The network, the gold, the list, everything. She's naming names, providing details, giving us everything we need to dismantle this thing." Amelia felt a surge of hope, of vindication. Beatrice's confession was a major breakthrough, a turning point in their struggle against the hidden forces that had threatened their lives, their community, their heritage. It was a testament to the power of truth, to the resilience of justice, to the enduring legacy of those who had fought for freedom and equality. "And the diary, Sheriff?" Amelia asked, her voice hesitant. "Did she say anything about the diary?" Brody nodded. "She confirmed that Charles stole it," he said. "But she claims she doesn't know where it is now. She says Charles was acting on his own, that he was unpredictable." Amelia didn't believe her. She knew that Beatrice was a master manipulator, a skilled liar, and that she was capable of anything to protect herself, to minimize her involvement, to shift the blame onto others. But she also knew that Beatrice's confession, regardless of her motivations, was a valuable tool, a weapon they could use to expose the network and bring its members to justice. "We have the diary, Sheriff," Samuel said, his voice firm. "We found it last night in Magnolia Cemetery." Brody's eyes widened in surprise. "You found it?" he asked.
"How?"
Amelia and Samuel briefly explained their discovery, their intuition about the Magnolia inscription, their search of the Dubois family plot, and their near-miss escape from the network's pursuers. Brody listened intently, his expression a mixture of admiration and relief. "You two are incredible," he said. "You've done more to uncover this conspiracy than we could have hoped for." He paused, then added, his voice serious. "But you're also in danger. Beatrice may be talking, but that doesn't mean the network is finished. They'll be looking for the diary for you. They'll be desperate." Amelia and Samuel nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation.
They were not out of the woods yet.
They still faced a threat, a very real threat, from the remnants of the network, from those who still clung to the past, to the legacy of hatred and division. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Brody said. "And we need to get that diary to Reynolds. He's the only one who can handle this now." They agreed, knowing that their safety and the safety of the diary were paramount. They left the diner, following Sheriff Brody to a secure location, a safe house provided by the authorities, where they could wait for Reynolds to arrive, to take custody of the diary, to launch the next phase of the investigation. As they waited, Amelia and Samuel reflected on their journey, on the twists and turns, the dangers and discoveries, the triumphs and setbacks that had led them to this point. They had started with a simple desire to preserve a historical house, to protect a family legacy, and they had ended up uncovering a conspiracy that reached far beyond the walls of the Dubois mansion, far beyond the boundaries of Charleston. They had faced betrayal, violence, and the constant threat of death, but they had also found strength, courage, and a love that had blossomed amidst adversity, a love that had sustained them through the darkest hours. They had also found allies, friends, and supporters who shared their vision of a more just and equitable future, a future where the ghosts of the past could finally be laid to rest, where the truth could be revealed, and where the legacy of those who had fought for freedom and equality could be honored. Finally, Reynolds arrived, his face grim, his eyes reflecting the weight of the responsibility he carried, the magnitude of the task ahead. He greeted Amelia and Samuel with a mixture of gratitude and concern, thanking them for their courage, their persistence, their unwavering commitment to the truth. They handed him the diary, Eleanor's legacy, the key to exposing the network, the evidence that could bring down a conspiracy that had spanned generations. Reynolds took the diary, his hand trembling slightly, his expression solemn. This changes everything," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "This is the proof we needed." He assured them that he would take every precaution to protect the diary, to ensure its integrity, and to use it as the basis for a full-scale investigation, an investigation that would leave no stone unturned, that would expose every member of the network, that would bring them all to justice. He also assured them that they would be protected, that they would be safe, that the full force of the law would be brought to bear against anyone who threatened them, who tried to silence them, who sought to preserve the legacy of hatred and division. As Reynolds left, the diary secured in his possession, Amelia and Samuel felt a sense of relief, of closure, of a chapter in their lives finally coming to an end. But they also knew that this was not the end of their story, not the end of their journey. They had a future to build, a love to cherish, and a community to serve. They had a legacy to uphold, a legacy of courage, of resilience, of a commitment to truth and justice. They returned to the Dubois house, their home, their sanctuary, the place where their love had blossomed, where their journey had begun. The house, once a symbol of division and conflict, was now a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of forgiveness, of reconciliation, of the enduring human spirit. They decided to focus their energies on the Historical Society, to transform it into a center for education, for dialogue, for promoting a more inclusive and truthful understanding of Charleston's history. They envisioned a place where people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, could come together to learn, to share their stories, to build a better future. They had reclaimed their legacy, not just the house but their lives. The future beckoned. Chapter 26. A Bridge Across Time. The future beckoned, not with the uncertainty and fear that had characterized their recent past, but with a sense of hope, of purpose, and of the enduring power of love and community. Amelia and Samuel, having navigated the treacherous waters of historical conspiracy and personal betrayal, had emerged stronger, their bond deepened, their commitment to each other and to the city of Charleston unwavering. Their immediate focus shifted to the Charleston Historical Society, transforming it from a relatively quiet organization dedicated to preserving the past into a dynamic and vibrant center for education, dialogue, and reconciliation. They envisioned a space where the complexities of Charleston's history could be explored honestly and openly, where the voices of all its citizens, past and present, could be heard and respected, and where the lessons of the past could inform and inspire a more just and equitable future. Amelia, with her deep connection to Charleston's history, her artistic talent, and her newfound confidence as a public speaker, took on a leadership role within the society. She spearheaded initiatives to expand the society's reach, to engage with diverse communities, and to create programs that would appeal to a wider audience, particularly young people. She organized exhibitions, lectures, and workshops that explored the untold stories of Charleston, the experiences of enslaved people, the struggles of the civil rights movement, the contributions of marginalized groups, and the ongoing challenges of racial inequality and social injustice. She used her art to create visual representations of these stories, her paintings becoming powerful tools for education, for empathy, and for promoting understanding and dialogue. Samuel, with his historical expertise, his analytical skills, and his quiet but forceful demeanor, complemented Amelia's efforts, providing the intellectual and scholarly foundation for the Society's programs. He conducted research, wrote articles, and gave presentations that challenged the traditional narratives of Charleston's history, exposing the myths and distortions, and revealing the complexities and contradictions of the past. He also worked to build bridges between different communities within Charleston, fostering dialogue and understanding between those who had traditionally been divided by race, class, and historical perspectives. He organized interfaith gatherings, community forums, and collaborative projects that brought people together, encouraging them to share their stories, to listen to each other, and to find common ground. Together, Amelia and Samuel transformed the Historical Society into a vital force for positive change in Charleston, a place where the past was not just preserved, but also interrogated, debated, and used as a catalyst for building a better future. They attracted new members, secured funding, and expanded the society's influence, making it a model for other historical organizations across the country. Their work, however, was not without its challenges. They continued to face resistance from those who clung to the lost cause mythology, who denied the extent of the Confederate network's influence, and who resented the efforts to challenge the traditional narratives of Charleston's history. There were threats, both veiled and overt, attempts to intimidate them, to silence them, to undermine their work. But they persevered, their determination unwavering, their commitment to truth and justice absolute. They knew that they were fighting for something important, something that transcended their personal struggles, something that would shape the future of their community, of their city, of their nation. As they worked to build bridges across time, to connect the past with the present, and to create a more inclusive and equitable future, Amelia and Samuel also found themselves deepening their own personal connection, their love growing stronger with each shared challenge, each shared triumph. They spent their evenings together, often sitting on the veranda of the Dubois house, watching the sunset over the Charleston harbor, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. They talked about their dreams, their hopes, their fears, and their unwavering commitment to each other and to the community they loved. They also talked about Eleanor, about her courage, her resilience, her unwavering commitment to justice. They felt her presence in the house, in the hidden room, in the city itself, a guiding spirit, a reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and to fight for a better world. One evening, as they were sitting on the veranda, enjoying the cool breeze and the scent of jasmine, Amelia turned to Samuel, her eyes filled with a love that had only deepened with time. "Samuel," she said softly, "I've been thinking about our future, about our legacy." Samuel smiled, his blue eyes reflecting the warmth of his affection, the depth of his commitment to her. "What about it, Amelia?" he asked. I want to create something lasting, Samuel," she said. "Something that will honor Eleanor's memory, that will celebrate the history of Charleston, and that will inspire future generations to fight for justice and equality." She paused, then added, her voice filled with a newfound confidence, a sense of purpose that had blossomed amidst the challenges they had faced. "I want to establish a foundation, Samuel," she said. "The Eleanor Dubois Foundation for Historical Truth and Reconciliation." Samuel's eyes widened in surprise, then filled with admiration. "That's a wonderful idea, Amelia," he said. "A perfect way to honor Eleanor's legacy and to continue the work we've started." They spent the next few weeks developing the idea, outlining the foundation's mission, its goals, its programs. They envisioned a foundation that would support historical research, educational initiatives, community outreach, and artistic expression, all focused on promoting a more inclusive and truthful understanding of Charleston's history and on fostering dialogue and reconciliation across racial and social divides. They reached out to friends, colleagues, and community leaders, seeking their support, their advice, and their participation in the foundation's work. The response was overwhelmingly positive, a testament to the impact Amelia and Samuel had had on the community, to the respect they had earned, and to the growing recognition of the need for historical truth and reconciliation. The Eleanor Dubois Foundation for Historical Truth and Reconciliation was officially launched, becoming a beacon of hope, a symbol of progress, and a powerful force for positive change in Charleston. It was a bridge across time, connecting the past with the present, honoring the legacy of those who had fought for freedom and equality, and inspiring future generations to continue the struggle. It was their legacy, too, built together. And it was just the beginning. Chapter 27. The Key to the Future. And it was just the beginning. The Eleanor Dubois Foundation for Historical Truth and Reconciliation, launched with a spirit of hope and determination, quickly became a driving force in Charleston, fostering dialogue, promoting education, and challenging the long-held narratives that had obscured the complexities and injustices of the city's past. Amelia and Samuel, working in tandem, poured their hearts and souls into the foundation, their love for each other, and their commitment to the community fueling their tireless efforts. The Foundation's initial focus was on expanding the reach and impact of the Charleston Historical Society, providing it with the resources and support it needed to become a truly inclusive and representative institution. They secured funding to hire additional staff, to develop new exhibits, to create innovative educational programs, and to reach out to underserved communities, ensuring that the stories of all Charlestonians, regardless of race, class, or background, were told and honored. They also established a scholarship program, providing financial assistance to students pursuing degrees in history, education, and related fields, with a particular emphasis on supporting students from underrepresented communities. They believed that education was the key to the future, the key to breaking down barriers, to fostering understanding, and to building a more just and equitable society. The Foundation's work extended beyond the walls of the Historical Society, reaching into schools, community centers, and public spaces throughout Charleston. They organized lectures, workshops, and film screenings that explored the history of slavery, the civil rights movement, and the ongoing struggle for racial equality. They sponsored walking tours of the historic district, highlighting the stories of enslaved people, of abolitionists, of civil rights activists, and of the ordinary citizens who had fought for freedom and justice. They also collaborated with local artists, musicians, and writers, commissioning new works that explored the themes of memory, identity, and reconciliation. They believed that art had the power to heal, to connect, to inspire, and to transform individuals and communities. As the Foundation grew and its impact expanded, Amelia and Samuel found themselves increasingly in demand as speakers, as consultants, as advisors on issues related to historical truth and reconciliation. They traveled across the country, sharing their story, their experiences, and their vision for a more just and equitable future. They were recognized for their work, receiving awards, accolades, and honorary degrees from universities and organizations that celebrated their commitment to social justice, to historical accuracy, and to building bridges across divides. But despite the recognition and the success, Amelia and Samuel remained grounded, humble, their focus always on the work itself, on the people they were serving, on the community they loved. They knew that the fight for truth and justice was a long and arduous one, that there would be setbacks and challenges, but they were determined to persevere, to continue their efforts to build a better future for Charleston and for the nation. One of the Foundation's most ambitious projects was the creation of a digital archive, a comprehensive online resource that would make the history of Charleston accessible to people around the world. The archive would include digitized documents, photographs, oral histories, and other materials, providing a rich and multifaceted portrait of the city's past, its people, its struggles, and its triumphs. Amelia, with her artistic eye and her passion for storytelling, took the lead on the visual aspects of the archive, curating images, creating interactive exhibits, and developing online tools that would allow users to explore the history of Charleston in engaging and meaningful ways. Samuel, with his historical expertise and his analytical skills, focused on the research and documentation, ensuring the accuracy and integrity of the information presented in the archive. He also worked to build partnerships with other historical organizations, universities, and libraries, creating a network of resources that would enrich the archive and expand its reach. The digital archive became a labor of love, a testament to their commitment to preserving and sharing the history of Charleston, to making it accessible to everyone, regardless of their location, their background, or their resources. It was a key to the future, a tool that would empower future generations to learn from the past, to understand the present, and to build a more just and equitable world. As they worked on the digital archive, Amelia and Samuel found themselves reflecting on their own journey, on the unexpected path that had led them to this point, on the love that had blossomed amidst adversity, on the legacy they were creating together. They had started with a simple desire to preserve a historical house, to protect a family legacy, and they had ended up transforming a community, challenging long-held beliefs, and inspiring others to join the fight for truth and justice. They had faced danger, betrayal, and the constant threat of opposition, but they had also found courage, resilience, and a deep and abiding love that had sustained them through it all. They had discovered that the key to the future was not just about preserving the past, but about understanding it, learning from it, and using it to build a better world. It was about confronting the uncomfortable truths, acknowledging the injustices, and working towards reconciliation and healing. It was about creating a legacy of hope, of justice, of a community united in its commitment to equality, to opportunity, and to the enduring power of the human spirit. The key wasn't just information. It was connection. And they were forging connections every day. Chapter 28. Beyond the cobblestone streets. And they were forging connections every day. The digital archive, a monumental undertaking, was nearing completion. Its vast collection of digitized documents, photographs, oral histories, and interactive exhibits poised to transform the way people understood and engaged with Charleston's complex past. It was a testament to Amelia and Samuel's vision, their dedication, and their unwavering belief in the power of history to educate, inspire, and build bridges across divides. But their work extended far beyond the digital realm, beyond the cobblestone streets and historic houses of Charleston. The Amelia Dubois Foundation, under their leadership, had become a nationally recognized force for historical truth and reconciliation, its influence reaching far beyond the boundaries of South Carolina. They were invited to speak at conferences, to consult with other historical organizations, and to advise on national initiatives related to the preservation of historical sites, the accurate representation of marginalized communities, and the promotion of dialogue and understanding across racial and social divides. Their story, the story of a late-in-life love blossoming amidst a struggle for historical justice, had captured the imagination of the nation, inspiring others to confront their own local histories, to challenge long-held assumptions, and to work towards a more inclusive and equitable future. Amelia, once hesitant to share her personal story, had become a powerful and eloquent voice for change, her speeches and presentations moving audiences to tears, inspiring them to action, and challenging them to examine their own biases and prejudices. She had found her voice, not just as an artist, but as an advocate, a leader, and a champion of truth and reconciliation. Samuel, ever her steadfast supporter, her intellectual partner, continued to provide the scholarly foundation for their work, his research, his writing, and his quiet but forceful demeanor lending credibility and weight to their message. He had become a respected voice in the national conversation on race, history, and memory, his insights sought out by journalists, academics, and policymakers alike. Together, Amelia and Samuel were an unstoppable force. Their combined talents, their shared passion, and their unwavering commitment to justice creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond the confines of their own lives, their own community. They traveled extensively, visiting historical sites across the country, meeting with community leaders, activists, and educators, sharing their experiences, offering their support, and learning from others who were engaged in similar struggles. They visited Montgomery, Alabama, where they walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, a symbol of the civil rights movement, a reminder of the courage and resilience of those who had fought for racial equality. They visited New Orleans, Louisiana, where they explored the history of slavery and the vibrant culture of the African American community. They visited Little Rock, Arkansas, where they stood in front of Central High School, a testament to the struggle for school desegregation and the enduring fight for equal opportunity. Each visit, each encounter, deepened their understanding of the complexities of American history, of the ongoing struggle for racial justice, and of the importance of their work. They returned to Charleston, their commitment renewed, their resolve strengthened, their vision for the future even more clear. They realized that their work was not just about preserving the past, it was about shaping the future. It was about creating a world where the lessons of history were learned, where the injustices of the past were acknowledged and addressed, and where the promise of equality and opportunity for all could be realized. As they continued their work, expanding the reach of the foundation, developing new programs, and building new partnerships, Amelia and Samuel also found time to nurture their own relationship, to deepen their love, to enjoy the simple pleasures of life together. They still spent their evenings on the veranda of the Dubois house, watching the sunsets, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. They still walked hand in hand through the streets of Charleston, their love a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. They had found their place in the world, their purpose, their home, and they had found it together, their lives intertwined, their destinies linked, their love a constant source of strength, of inspiration, and of unwavering joy. One evening, as they were preparing for a fundraising gala for the foundation, an event that would bring together community leaders, philanthropists, and supporters from across the country, Amelia turned to Samuel, her eyes filled with a love that had only grown stronger with time. "Samuel," she said softly, "I've been thinking about our journey, about how far we've come." Samuel smiled, his blue eyes reflecting the warmth of his affection, the depth of his commitment to her. "We've come a long way, Amelia," he said, "but we still have a long way to go." Amelia nodded, her heart filled with gratitude for his unwavering support, for his partnership, for his love. "I know," she said, "but I'm not afraid. Not anymore. Because I know we can do anything as long as we're together." Samuel reached out, taking her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "That's right, Amelia," he said. "Together. We're stronger together." They looked at each other, their eyes locking in a gaze of love, of understanding, of a shared future stretching before them, filled with endless possibilities. They had traveled beyond the cobblestone streets of Charleston, both literally and figuratively. Their influence, their love, their story had expanded outward. They had built something special, something lasting, something that mattered, and they had done it together. Chapter 29. A Tapestry of Trust. And they had done it together. The fundraising gala for the Amelia Dubois Foundation was a resounding success, a testament to the impact Amelia and Samuel had made on Charleston and beyond, a celebration of their unwavering commitment to historical truth, reconciliation, and the power of community. The event, held in a beautifully restored ballroom in the heart of the historic district, was attended by a diverse crowd of supporters, philanthropists, community leaders, and individuals whose lives had been touched by the foundation's work. The ballroom, filled with the soft glow of chandeliers, the murmur of conversations, and the elegant strains of a string quartet, was a reflection of the transformation that had taken place in Charleston, a city once deeply divided by its past, now striving to build a future based on understanding, empathy, and a shared commitment to justice. Amelia, radiant in a gown of deep blue silk, her silver hair elegantly styled, moved through the crowd with grace and confidence, greeting guests, thanking donors, and sharing her vision for the foundation's future. She had become a symbol of hope and resilience, a living embodiment of the power of second chances and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Samuel, standing by her side, his presence a source of quiet strength and unwavering support, beamed with pride as he watched Amelia interact with the guests, her passion for history, for justice, for community, evident in every word, in every gesture. He had witnessed her transformation, her journey from a woman burdened by the past to a leader, an advocate, and a champion of truth and reconciliation. The evening was filled with speeches, testimonials, and expressions of gratitude, all highlighting the foundation's accomplishments, its impact on the community, and its vision for the future. The digital archive, now fully operational, was showcased, its vast collection of historical materials accessible to people around the world, a testament to the power of technology to connect people with the past and to inspire a more informed and engaged citizenry. The scholarship program, established by the foundation, was also highlighted, with several recipients sharing their stories, their dreams, and their gratitude for the opportunity to pursue their education and to contribute to their communities. These young people, representing the future of Charleston, embodied the hope and the promise of a more just and equitable society. As the evening progressed, Amelia and Samuel found themselves surrounded by a circle of friends, colleagues, and supporters, all expressing their admiration for their work, their dedication, and their unwavering commitment to building a better future. They were lauded for their courage, their resilience, and their ability to bring people together, to bridge divides, and to foster a sense of shared purpose. But amidst the celebration, the accolades, and the expressions of gratitude, Amelia and Samuel were also aware of the challenges that still lay ahead, of the forces of resistance that still sought to undermine their efforts, to preserve the old narratives, and to maintain the divisions of the past. They knew that the fight for historical truth and reconciliation was a long and arduous one, that there would be setbacks and obstacles, but they were undeterred, their determination fueled by their love for each other, their commitment to their community, and their unwavering belief in the power of truth to heal, to unite, and to transform. As the evening drew to a close, Amelia and Samuel found themselves on the dance floor, swaying to the gentle rhythm of a waltz, their bodies close, their hearts connected, their spirits intertwined. They were surrounded by friends and supporters, but in that moment, they were alone, together, in a world of their own making. "This is amazing, Samuel," Amelia whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "Look at all these people. Look at what we've accomplished." Samuel smiled, his eyes reflecting the warmth of his affection, the depth of his pride in her, in their shared achievements. "We did it together, Amelia," he said softly. "We built this. Together." He paused, then added, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. "And it's all thanks to you, Amelia," he said. "Your courage, your vision, your unwavering belief in the power of truth. You inspired me. You inspired all of us." Amelia blushed, her heart swelling with gratitude for his words, for his love, for his unwavering support. "It wasn't just me, Samuel," she said. "It was us. It was the power of our love, of our partnership, of our shared commitment to making a difference." They continued to dance, their movements graceful and effortless, their bodies attuned to each other, their hearts beating as one. They were not just dancing with each other, they were dancing with the spirit of Charleston, with the echoes of the past, with the promise of the future. They were dancing with hope, with joy, with a love that had defied the odds, transcended the shadows, and blossomed into something extraordinary. They had woven a tapestry of trust, not just between themselves, but within the community, creating a network of support, of collaboration, of shared purpose. The tapestry was strong, resilient, and beautiful, a testament to the power of human connection, to the enduring strength of the human spirit, and to the transformative potential of love, forgiveness, and reconciliation. It was a living artwork, constantly evolving, growing, and adapting to the changing landscape of their lives, their community, their world. As the music ended and the applause filled the ballroom, Amelia and Samuel stood hand in hand, their eyes meeting, their hearts overflowing with gratitude, with love, with a shared sense of accomplishment. They had built something lasting, something meaningful, something that would continue to inspire and empower future generations. They had created a legacy, not just of bricks and mortar, not just of historical artifacts and documents, but of trust, of understanding, of a community united in its commitment to truth, justice, and reconciliation. The tapestry was far from complete. There were more threads to weave, more colors to add, more stories to tell. But it was strong. It was beautiful. And it was theirs. Together. Chapter 30. Charleston's Enduring Light. And it was theirs. Together. The tapestry of trust, woven with threads of love, courage, and a shared commitment to truth and reconciliation, was a testament to the transformative power of Amelia and Samuel's journey, a journey that had begun with a desire to preserve a historical house and had blossomed into a movement that was reshaping the very fabric of Charleston society. The years that followed the gala were marked by continued growth, both for the Amelia Dubois Foundation and for Amelia and Samuel's personal lives. The foundation became a nationally recognized model for historical preservation, community engagement, and the promotion of dialogue and understanding across racial and social divides. Its programs expanded, its influence grew, and its impact on Charleston and beyond was undeniable. The digital archive, a cornerstone of the foundation's work, became a vital resource for scholars, students, and anyone interested in exploring the complexities of American history, particularly the history of the South, of slavery, and of the civil rights movement. It was a living testament to the power of technology to connect people with the past, to promote learning, and to inspire a more informed and engaged citizenry. Amelia, her artistic talents flourishing alongside her leadership role in the foundation, continued to create powerful and evocative works of art that explored the themes of memory, identity, and reconciliation. Her paintings, exhibited in galleries and museums across the country, became visual narratives of Charleston's journey, capturing the beauty of the city, the struggles of its people, and the enduring hope for a more just and equitable future. Samuel, ever the scholar and historian, continued to research, to write, and to speak out on issues of historical truth and social justice. He became a sought-after commentator on national media, his insights and perspectives valued for their depth, their nuance, and their unwavering commitment to accuracy and fairness. He also mentored young historians, sharing his knowledge, his experience, and his passion for uncovering the hidden stories of the past. Their personal lives, too, continued to flourish. They remained deeply in love, their bond strengthened by the shared challenges they had overcome, by the triumphs they had celebrated, and by the unwavering support they offered each other. They spent their days working side by side, their evenings sharing quiet moments on the veranda of the Dubois house, and their weekends exploring the beauty of the Lowcountry, their love a constant source of joy, of inspiration, and of unwavering strength. Their family, too, expanded, with Emily's children growing up and becoming active participants in the Foundation's work, carrying on the legacy of their grandparents, their commitment to community, and their passion for history and social justice. As the years turned into decades, Amelia and Samuel found themselves reflecting on their journey, on the tapestry of their lives, on the impact they had made on Charleston and beyond. They had started with a simple desire to preserve a house, and they had ended up transforming a community, challenging long-held beliefs, and inspiring others to join the fight for truth and reconciliation. They had faced opposition, danger, and the constant threat of those who sought to silence them, to preserve the old narratives, to maintain the divisions of the past. But they had persevered, their courage fueled by their love for each other, their commitment to their community, and their unwavering belief in the power of truth to heal, to unite, and to transform. They had become symbols of hope, of resilience, of the enduring human spirit. They had shown that it was possible to confront the past, to acknowledge the injustices, and to build a future based on understanding, empathy, and a shared commitment to equality and justice for all. One evening, as they were celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary, surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues at the Lakeside Diner, now a Charleston institution, Amelia and Samuel found themselves reflecting on their journey, on the tapestry of their lives, on the enduring light of Charleston that had guided them, inspired them, and sustained them through it all. "It's been an incredible journey, hasn't it?" Amelia said softly, her eyes meeting Samuel's, her hand clasped in his. Samuel nodded, his blue eyes reflecting the warmth of his affection, the depth of his gratitude for her presence in his life. "It has, Amelia," he replied, "beyond anything I could have ever imagined." They looked around the diner, at the faces of their loved ones, at the art that adorned the walls, at the spirit of community that permeated the space. They saw the reflection of their own happiness, their own fulfillment, in the eyes of those around them. They had created a legacy, not just of bricks and mortar, not just of historical artifacts and documents, but of love, of forgiveness, of reconciliation, and of a community united in its commitment to truth, justice, and a brighter future. As the evening drew to a close, and the guests began to depart, Amelia and Samuel stepped out onto the porch of the diner, the cool night air a welcome contrast to the warmth and excitement of the celebration. They looked out at the Charleston skyline, the lights twinkling like stars, the moon casting a silvery glow on the water. They saw the beauty of the city, the resilience of its people, and the enduring spirit of a place that had overcome so much, that had learned from its past, and that was now striving to build a future worthy of its rich and complex history. Charleston's light, it's always been there, Samuel, Amelia said softly, her voice filled with emotion. Even in the darkest of times. It's just we had to find it. We had to uncover it. Samuel nodded, his arm around her waist, his body close to hers. And we did, Amelia, he said.
We did.
Together. They stood there, in silence, their hearts filled with gratitude, with love, with a shared sense of accomplishment. They had found their place in the world, their purpose, their home, and they had found it together, their lives intertwined, their destinies linked, their love a constant source of strength and inspiration. The light of Charleston, the light of truth, the light of love, shone brightly upon them, illuminating their path, guiding their way, and promising a future filled with hope, with joy, and with the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and to create a better world. The tapestry was complete, and Charleston's light shone for everyone. Epilogue. And Charleston's light shone for everyone. The tapestry, complete yet ever-evolving, represented not just the lives of Amelia and Samuel, but the spirit of a city transformed, a community awakened to its own complex history and striving towards a future defined by truth, justice, and reconciliation. Their journey, sparked by a desire to preserve a single house, had ignited a movement, revealing hidden stories, challenging long-held beliefs, and ultimately, weaving a new narrative for Charleston, one that embraced its past, acknowledged its flaws, and celebrated its potential for healing and growth. The years passed, marked by milestones both personal and public. The Amelia Dubois Foundation flourished, its influence expanding far beyond the cobblestone streets of Charleston, becoming a national model for historical preservation, community engagement, and the pursuit of social justice. Amelia's art continued to inspire, her paintings gracing the walls of galleries and museums, telling stories of resilience, courage, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Samuel's scholarship and advocacy continued to shape the national conversation on race, history, and memory, his voice a constant reminder of the importance of confronting the past and building a more equitable future. The Dubois House, now fully restored and designated as a National Historic Landmark, became a destination for visitors from around the world, drawn by its beauty, its history, and the powerful stories it told. The Hidden Room, once a repository of secrets, was now a place of pilgrimage, a testament to Eleanor's courage, and a symbol of the transformative power of truth. Their family, too, continued to grow and thrive. Emily's children, now adults, carried on the legacy of their grandparents, actively involved in the Foundation's work and deeply committed to the values of social justice and community service. They had inherited not just a house, but a responsibility, a calling to continue the fight for a better world. Amelia and Samuel, their hair now completely silver, their steps a little slower, but their eyes still shining with the same passion and determination, remained at the heart of it all, their love a constant source of inspiration, their wisdom a guiding light, their presence a reminder of the enduring power of hope, resilience, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. They often sat on the veranda of the Dubois house, just as they had done countless times before, watching the sunsets over the Charleston harbor, the vibrant colors reflecting in the water, a reminder of the beauty and the fragility of life. They would talk, sharing memories, reflecting on their journey, and marveling at the transformations they had witnessed, both in their own lives and in the world around them. They had seen Charleston evolve, from a city grappling with its past to a city embracing its future, a city striving to live up to its ideals, to become a place where all its citizens could feel safe, respected, and valued. They had seen the power of community, the strength of collective action, and the enduring hope for a more just and equitable society. One evening, as the stars began to twinkle in the clear night sky, Amelia turned to Samuel, her hand reaching for his, her touch still sending a shiver of warmth through his veins. "Samuel," she said softly, her voice filled with love and gratitude. "We did it. We really did it." Samuel smiled, his eyes reflecting the depth of his affection for her, the pride he felt in their shared accomplishments. "We did, Amelia," he replied. "And we did it together." He paused, then added, his voice filled with a quiet sense of wonder. It's like Eleanor's spirit was guiding us, all along," he said. "Like she was waiting for us to find her, to tell her story, to set things right." Amelia nodded, her heart filled with a sense of peace, of completion, of a connection to the past that transcended time and circumstance. She knew that Eleanor's spirit was with them, that her legacy lived on, not just in the museum, not just in the foundation, but in the hearts and minds of all those who had been touched by her story, by her courage, by her unwavering commitment to justice. As they sat there, hand in hand, under the Charleston sky, they knew that their journey was not over, that there would be new challenges, new opportunities, new stories to tell. But they also knew that they would face them together, their love a constant source of strength, their shared purpose a guiding light, their legacy a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and to create a better world. The light of Charleston, a light that had once been dimmed by the shadows of the past, now shone brightly, illuminating the path forward, guiding the way towards a future where truth, justice, and reconciliation would prevail. It shone on them and through them, always.